is it possible that parity in the NL Central makes for a compelling season? That because there isn't one of those juggernaut Titans tycoon teams, that we're actually in for maybe some pretty compelling standings watching, some pretty compelling style games, that not having a favorite could make the division pretty damn entertaining?
That was Derek Gould on the best podcast in baseball. It was from a few weeks ago with Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. It is BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We'll talk about that division race with Buster Olney of ESPN coming up at 11:30. He's going to be on the call for Sunday Night Baseball. Cubs versus Cardinals. The first time we've seen these teams meet, Alex, in a regular season meeting since late July of last season. Strange quirk of the new scheduling. It's been about 10 months since these two teams have taken the field against one another. And this is becoming what is a relatively, at least, compelling race in the NL Central between the three teams everybody expected it to be between. The Brewers, the Cubs, the Cardinals. Brewers are at the top, 28-21. Cubs 2 games back. Cardinals right now are 5 games back of the Brewers in the division. So, as things stand today, Alex, how do you view this divisional race going into Memorial Day weekend, Alex? How do you view those three teams and how you see them right now?
I view it as you're the little brother to the big brother still in the NL Central. And that big brother is the Brewers and the Cubs. I agree with Derek there to where there's no Titan, there's no Atlanta Braves, Philadelphia Phillies, Dodgers in your division where you feel like it's an insurmountable opportunity to catch them. But I do feel like there are two teams that are superior to you, and then you're the little brother, and then you've got the ugly stepkid that's the Cincinnati Reds and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Like, that's what it feels like the tier of this NL Central is. And you've already failed twice against the Milwaukee Brewers to prove that you can play in the same playground as them. And this weekend is your opportunity to prove it against the Chicago Cubs. Are you a lion or are you a lamb? Because right now you've gone through 3 straight series where you've beat a bad team, you've beat an okay team, and you've beat a really good team. Are you going to take the opportunity and put the stamp of approval saying, like, hey, we're here. We're here to fight for the NL Central in 4 straight series wins and beating the divisional opponent? Or are you going to cower in the corner like a lamb, like you've done against the Brewers twice and like you've done in the past against Central teams, and say, we're just not good enough? We're a wild card team. We're one of the second or third team wild cards that could get in, which apparently everybody gets to, but we're not an NL Central team that can beat the other opponents.
Yeah, I feel like the Cubs are the class of this division. And I know the Brewers kicked the snot out of the Cardinals. I think the Brewers are good, but I'm not buying what I've seen from them this season still. I just don't think their pitching's going to hold up, and their lineup, like Contreras is good. I don't think he's an MVP candidate all season long. So I think they will kind of regress. I feel like the Cubs are the team that is going to win this division. And that's why going into this weekend, the Cardinals have a chance to potentially change my mind, especially because it's not like they're having the best part of their rotation go through here. They're going to have Michaelis, I guess, Liberatore, and then Sonny Gray. Like, you got the weaker part of your rotation. You're going up against the Cubs, and you got Imanaga tonight. So I feel like the Cubs are the class of this division. I know that they're scuffling right now, but I feel like they are the best rounded team in this division. You got the Pirates and the Reds that are the bottom dwellers, in my opinion. To me, the Cardinals are right in that muddy middle. They're kind of that third-place team that maybe they can kind of work their way back into this race, but to me, it's down to the Cubs and the Brewers, and the Cubs, to me, are the best team.
I think the thing that separates those two teams that you guys are referencing is the fact that they do one thing that is an elite level. The Brewers have an elite offense so far this year. I don't know that that will remain the case all year long, but right now they're third in Major League Baseball in runs scored per game. Hard for me to deny that. The Phillies and the Dodgers are the two teams ahead of them. The Brewers are at 4.98 runs per game. The Dodgers, who we all agree, unbelievable offense, right? Given the Hall of Fame talent that they have littered throughout their lineup, 5.04. So they're both scoring 5 runs per game this year. The Brewers are just the surprise team that's in that area of the rankings right now. Meanwhile, the Cubs have an elite rotation currently. Their starting pitching has been unbelievable, and it all starts with the guy that's going to be on the mound for them tonight. Shota Imanaga has been one of, if not the best pitcher in baseball so far this year. I remember when we talked to Eno Saris, and we were talking about Yamamoto, and we kept bringing up Yamamoto. This is like midway through last season. We're like, hey, what do you think Yamamoto's going to get? Could the Cardinals get in? He's like, hey, listen, guys, I understand. Everybody's super excited about Yamamoto. They should be. He's 25 years old. He's going to be a really good pitcher in Major League Baseball. But this guy, Shota Imanaga, he's 31 years old. He's going to be a lot cheaper And he might be every bit as good early on as Yamamoto is. And we're like, oh, cool, that's going to be the guy that the Cardinals end up going to sign. They're going to get the cheap, older version of the pitcher that we all want them to get in Yamamoto. Looking back, I would have loved to have Shota Imanaga as a part of this rotation right now. Unfortunately, he fell in love with Chicago. He went to one of the worst football games ever played at Wrigley Field, decided that he wanted to be a Cub. So what are you going to do? But
should have done more.
the Cardinals are going up against that offense or that pitching this weekend, and it's an opportunity for the Cardinals to prove that their offense can be elite. Because right now you have nothing. You got good defense. I'm not sure it's elite given the fact that they've had an error, and I think it's each of their past 9 games. You've got a really good bullpen. Can it be elite? Potentially. I think you need to get a couple of guys back. Keenan Middleton will help that. Liberatore getting back into that group, that'll help it. I'm not sure you're elite necessarily in that area right now, given the lack of depth for the leverage arms. I don't think that you have anything that is elite the way that the Cubs starting pitching is and the Brewers offense is right now. This weekend, though, could go a long way in helping you find out if you can develop something that is in that area.
Yeah, I mean, if you can find a way to take down that type of pitching consistently, where you go from Red Sox to Orioles to the Chicago Cubs, I'll absolutely buy into the offense. I don't know if I'll buy into this team being a serious NL Central crown holder because the pitching still worries me in terms of the starters. But, man, if your offense does that for 3 straight series to where you are not only competitive, but you look like the better brand in that matchup of great pitching versus great offense, it's hard not to buy into that. That's going to start leaning you in the direction of, yeah, the Cardinals might have figured this one out. It's not a fluke anymore.
Yeah, and that comes down to Goldie and Arenado. Like, if Goldie and Arenado end up hitting in this series, you'll feel better about the offense can get to an elite level. Because
Can you feel good about the offense if they don't?
No.
I actually think I could. Again, I'm not going to think this team has any serious opportunity to make any depth run in the playoffs because of that. You need Goldie and Arenado, but I'll start to buy into them more because now you've consistently gotten the core around them doing it on a level every single day that I can expect something from. It's not just a fluke now.
Yeah, I can't. I can't believe that the offense can get to a lead if Goldie and Arenado don't hit because you don't have 3 impact bats then. And what have I been saying the last 2 years going to the postseason, and I think you need this in the regular season as well, 3 impact bats, probably 3 impact starters, or at least 2 elite ones and 1 that's really good, and then 4 bullpen arms. Well, who's the 3 impact bats? Like, Contreras is going to be one when he comes back, I think, but he broke an arm. So maybe he's not the same guy. Corbin can do it, but he can only do it in stretches. Like, the guys that are the consistent impact bats are Goldie and Arenado. And if they don't hit, I don't think the offense is going to be able to perform like it has over the last 6 games.
I think that's where I'm at as well. I think if one of them hits for power, like if Goldie just becomes a pure power hitter at this point in his career, and Arenado hits for the average, I think you can probably make that work. Where in the aggregate, you've basically got a middle of the order hitter. It's not the way you expected it to come, but you can get by with that as long as these other supplementary pieces continue hitting. But if you don't get at least one of them to start hitting for serious power, I think it's really hard for this offense to become what I expected it to be prior to the start of the season, when I thought those guys were going to return to form. So that's pretty much where I stand with it right now. I'm somewhere in between both of you. No surprise. Fence sitting BK right here on the show on a Friday morning. It's 11:13. Time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. I think it's somewhere in the middle. I'm not out on the offense if they can't get going, but I think it would require one of them to hit for some serious power. Buster Olney will be on the call for the Cardinals versus the Cubs on Sunday night. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. Buster Olney joins us at 11:30. But coming up next, you got Joe Buck back in the broadcast booth tonight. You got Fox Wayno in the broadcast booth tomorrow. You got the Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. Cardinals versus Cubs. Real stakes are at stake this weekend for both the Cardinals and the Cubs in the divisional standings. Cardinals trying to get back on track. This is the Prove It series for them. Does this have the feel of the biggest series the Cardinals have played so far this year? We'll answer that question for you next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, this has the feel to me of a big series, Alex. The Cardinals versus the Cubs. By the way, you can come on, hang out with us. Circa Sports Illinois is throwing a party for us at Max in downtown Alton. Come watch the biggest rivalry in baseball as Chicago takes on the Cardinals. Epic complimentary food spread is going to be made available to you. It's free food. Come on out tonight. 5 to 7 is when we're going to be there. Stick around for the Cardinals game as well with Buck and with Chip Carey on the call for tonight. And then tomorrow, T-Bone's going to be there with Alex. 4 to 6 o'clock, Circa Sports at Max downtown Alton, Illinois. Location, check out all the details. 101ESPN.com is where you go to find those. Alex, it has the feel of a big series. And I don't think we've had a whole lot of those so far this year for the Cardinals because they got kind of pushed off track early on. To you, is this the series that feels the biggest so far? Or do you have another one that immediately comes to mind?
It feels the biggest in terms of the swing series for a lot of Cardinals fans. I think there was at least one other for me that felt really big, probably on the same level as this Cubs one. It was the Angels. But that one felt big in a different reason. That one felt big because your manager and president of baseball operations might have been gone if you would have lost that series. Because
the stakes of that one were the downside.
Exactly. But it still felt big. It's like if you lose this one, your whole season might be turned upside down. This one feels a lot like you're taking on a Cubs team after winning 3 consecutive series. You're taking on a team to prove that you're not. What took place in the first month and a half of the season was not true. This is who you really are. That's why this one feels bigger. You've got the broadcast crew, which is putting this one on the front stage for basically all 3 games, and you've got a matchup that I believe are 2 teams that could be at the top of the NL Central. So, yeah, this one feels big in the sense of it's not big in terms of disaster. It's big in terms of a lot of fans changing their opinion about the Cardinals.
Boy, I must be really out on the Cardinals because, no, this series doesn't do it for me. I think the most pivotal series so far.
You don't love Cubs and Cards like we do.
Apparently not. I love the rivalry. Not anymore. I might be going back to being a Cardinals fan. To me, the most pivotal series where it felt like the stakes were the highest was the White Sox one. And I know the White Sox.
That's downside, though.
I don't think there's upside to this one.
Oh, really?
I don't think if they take 2 of 3 or sweep the Cubs, again, are Goldie and Arenado hitting? I don't know. And if they aren't, no, I'm not buying back in. It is more on a Goldie and Arenado thing than it is, can the Cardinals win 10 in a row? Can the Cardinals take 2 of 3? I'm not buying into what I potentially see this weekend because it all depends on how the results occur. Because Goldie and Arenado are the driving force for if you can believe in this team or not. And that's where I just firmly stand. And that's why I just don't think I can pinpoint a series in which I'm going to feel better about
What if you light up Shota Imanaga?
Who's doing it? Is it Goldie and Arenado? Because they haven't done.
I think it's more impressive if it's not Goldie and Arenado.
You kicked the crap out of Baltimore, and you know who did nothing? Goldie and Arenado. I don't care. Right now, it is just the offense is on a bit of a hot streak, and teams go through hot stretches. If you want me to really buy into what you are as a team, what you fundamentally are, Goldie and Arenado have to hit. And if they do not hit, I will not be buying in.
What if they hit but without power?
No, because you're not reaching the ceiling for this team. They've got to get closer to being back to what I view as Goldie and Arenado.
I think we're on the same page because, I'm not, even if you win the series.
I want to make that clear. I haven't given my thoughts on this yet, so I'm not on the same page as either of you.
No, T-Bone and I, it's not always about you, BK.
No, I just wanted to
just because your name's first.
No, I think T-Bone and I are on the same page here because, even if you sweep this series, I'm not invested in this team being a World Series contender or even making a deep playoff run. But I'm believing more in this team being a playoff team than where I was prior to this 3-series stretch of Boston, Baltimore, and Chicago.
Yeah, and I just don't feel like this series, they take 2 or 3 from the Cubs, is going to do it for me.
So you wouldn't even be in on them being a playoff team?
No, I don't think this is a good baseball team still. I don't think they are good. I think right now what you're seeing is all these complementary pieces are hitting and carrying those old guys in the corners. That's what I think's going on right now, and their pitching's not that good.
I'll be in. This is the series that can do it for me. And you guys know, I've been trying to avoid the acceptance that I'm going to have to get back on board and choo-choo. But
you know you were going to, man.
Dude, Tuesday morning, if they win 3 of the next 4 games, they'll play 4 games before we get back in. We're off on Monday for the holiday. We'll have a best of show for you. Please listen to that from 11 to 2 right here on 101 ESPN.
Be on the air.
At least put it on in the background.
Put a lot of work into that.
Just put it on in the background at home.
Watch us on YouTube.
No, we won't be.
Well, don't do that. Just put it on in the background. So when we get back on Tuesday, if they have won 3 out of 4, you're hearing the choo-choo train as we get into the show. 100%. Because at that point, you're going to be right around 500 again, and it will be hard for me to come on the air and be like, yeah, you shouldn't believe in anything that's taking place. Yes, it will be hard to say they're all the way back without Goldie and Arenado being a big part of it. But can this team win and get into that wild card range without those guys hitting? I think they can, because I think all of the teams that are fighting for that final wild card are wildly incomplete. I don't think there is any team that will get that last wild card that you look at and say to yourself, man, that team is really bleeping good. But one of them that gets it, or at least that is in play for it, can add something at the deadline that allows them to get closer to being a complete roster. I think the Cardinals have a chance to be a pretty good rotation. Not a great one by any stretch, but at least acceptable. I think the Cardinals have a chance to be a really good lineup, even if they are lacking the ceiling that we thought they had because of Goldie and Arenado. I think they have a chance to be an elite-level bullpen and an elite-level defensive club by the end of the season. And if you add all of that up, man, that's a really well-rounded baseball team. So are they good? I don't know yet. Could they show me this weekend that they are? If they're able to go out there against Imanaga and Taillon, and I don't know who the starter is going to be on Sunday. They haven't announced it yet from what I've seen. And you do that with Michaelis and Libby over the next 2 days? Dude, if you're able to win one of those and get the win on the Sonny Gray start, yeah. This is where the upside exists. And this is where I guess it's a little different for you versus me, Alex and T-Bone. You guys viewed the White Sox and the Angels series as big, quote unquote. I viewed them as potentially devastating. Those series showed you the downside of people could get fired if this thing goes in the wrong direction. This is the kind of series, and it's crazy that it's happened within the last week. Like, we went from people potentially getting fired to, holy crap, they're back into the wild card standings. This has the kind of series that gets people back on board, that pulls fans back in and says, yeah, we have a chance to be able to do something this year that you didn't expect as recently as a week or two ago.
Well, and welcome to my trust issues, because as much as I do agree, like, yeah, if they do that in this series, it's going to be hard for me to not sit here and look at them as a playoff caliber team. Again, not thinking that they could do any damage in the playoffs, but at least you can make the playoffs, where 2 weeks ago I didn't think that was even possible. I have trust issues because just like last year, you did all of this in the pivotal series like the Dodgers last year, and you won it, and you're like, hot damn, the Cardinals are coming. And then they laid an egg.
And that's where this series comes in. But this is the series last year that they laid an egg in. But this is exactly when it happened, and they...
See, I think we're at the Dodgers series now.
Yeah, this feels like the Dodgers series. And what worries me is you do that, and then you take on the Cincinnati Reds, and right down the pooper.
To me, the White Sox series, and maybe this is why I'm coming off of this going, this Cubs series doesn't feel big to me.
The White Sox series was the Angels series from a year ago.
The White Sox series, to me, told me who you are. And it told me that you're not a good baseball team because you lost 2-3 to Chicago.
That's placing all of the emphasis on that and not enough emphasis on the upside, in my opinion.
But you did it to Detroit, too.
I think if you're...
And I don't think Detroit's a good team.
They're okay.
Yeah, they're fine. To me,
couldn't beat them.
They don't have... Their upside... The reason I'm not, in on this whole upside thing is because... to me, you don't have a high upside if Goldie and Arenado aren't hitting. And that's the thing is, if those guys don't hit, I will never buy into this team. I don't care if they make the third wild card. I will be screaming on air on October, whatever it is, if they play that game. They're getting swept in this series. They've got to have those guys hitting. Otherwise, there is no ceiling for the St. Louis Cardinals that makes them a good baseball team.
And that's what I referenced.
They're just a mediocre baseball team that got kicked the crap out of them by the Chicago White Sox.
And that's what I referenced yesterday, where it feels like it really doesn't matter what you do unless you get Goldie and Arenado. And really, the other one we're talking about is a number 2 starter. It just doesn't matter. Am I going to believe in this team more if you pull off this series win? Absolutely. I still don't think they're going to do anything of meaning at the end of the year.
All right, so we're going to get into this question that we're ultimately getting at coming up at 12 o'clock. And I want to hear from our listeners on this. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. Are you more where Alex and T-Bone are, or are you more where I'm at? And what I'm asking here is, are you rooting for the Cardinals to get back on track and believing in what they're doing? Or are you rooting for change? Because I don't think the two things can coexist. If they win this series this weekend, I think you can write off anything changing before the end of the year. I think this series has that much potential power. So are you rooting for them to get back on track? And are you starting to believe in them? Or are you just rooting for change, and that will require some losses? Are you rooting for them to do what they did last year, which was show you a little hot stretch and then right back into the crapper. We'll get into those mic drops at about 12 o'clock right here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, though, Buster Olney, he's ESPN's MLB insider. Want to get his thoughts. Cards, Cubs, Cards where they stand right now, and if he thinks there's anybody that could be available that helps him out in their rotation. Buster Olney joins us next year on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendricks near the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals back in action tonight as they start a 3-game set with the Chicago Cubs. 7:15 will be first pitch as Shota Imanaga gets the start for Chicago, and Miles Michaelis will be on the mound for St. Louis. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
It's got the feel of a big Cardinal series this weekend. Cardinals versus the Cubs. First time we've seen this matchup since late July of last season. That was right before the trade deadline when we all knew the Cardinals were going to be sellers, so it didn't exactly have the feel of a big series there. You got Cards-Cubs tonight with Chip Carey and Joe Buck on the call. Tomorrow on Big Fox with Wayno in the broadcast booth. And then on Sunday, it's Cardinals versus Cubs. Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN. You can watch that at 6 o'clock. And Buster Olney will be a part of that that broadcast team. He joins us now via the 101 ESPN hotline. Buster, we appreciate the time as always, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited the Cardinals are playing better, so that hopefully gives us a better game on Sunday night. Because a month ago it was looking kind of ugly.
Yeah, we're very familiar with that, Buster. That roller coaster of emotions that we've been riding so far this year. What's your current stance on where the Cardinals are at today, Buster? Your 10,000-foot view on this team.
All right, they're in that mosh pit of teams that are right behind the big three. And the National League is really interesting because we sit here today, we can pencil in 3 teams in the playoffs. Philly's off to this great start. Braves, even though their offense hasn't taken off, they're having an excellent season. And then, of course, the Dodgers. And now the question is, among the other teams, who's in a position to be relevant when we get to the end of the year? And I don't think there's a lot that separates those teams. Like, San Diego has won more games than the Cardinals, but I don't think there's a lot of difference between the teams. I think the Cubs, obviously, are off to a decent start, but I don't necessarily think they're a dynamic team that's anywhere close to those top 3. Milwaukee's offense has been good this year, the athleticism, but you wonder about their pitching depth long term. So I do think that the Cardinals are in a position where there's some opportunity for them.
So, Buster, we just had this conversation. For me, it's hard to buy back into this Cardinals where they're at right now, mostly because we've seen these hot flashes before from the team, and Goldie and Arenado still struggling. Pitching has not looked good in this month for their team. If for some reason they can pull out this series win against the Cubs, is that enough to start buying back into this Cardinals team, or do you still feel like it's wait and see?
Well, I think it's wait and see with Nolan and with Goldie. To me, if you look at the structure of the team, look, those 2 guys have to hit. And there have been some hopeful signs of late with Goldschmidt. Nolan obviously got off to a terrible start. He's come back, I think, a little bit since the beginning of the year. But those 2 guys have to go back to being all-stars. And shoot, it was only a couple of years ago that Goldschmidt was the National League MVP. We had a Zoom call, prep call for this Sunday, and I mentioned because I didn't play above high school, but I said on our Zoom call that when I look at Goldie's numbers, where he's really struggling against breaking balls in particular, when I watch him hit, it feels like that he's been guessing a lot at the plate, which is not a pejorative, but he's been guessing wrong. And Eduardo Perez, who did play above high school level, played there in St. Louis. He was nodding his head. He said, I completely agree with you. And you just think that Goldie's going to go through these stretches. A few years ago, he went through a similar thing where, he's just got to figure that out as opposed to being in between. And, we'll see where he's at in a couple months. But those 2 guys, to me, are the crucial guys to give them the anchors in this lineup.
Can the Cardinals be what they want to be if those guys aren't hitting for power, Buster?
It's tough. And look, if you structure your team in such a way where those are, your 2 high-priced guys, you've got to get production out of those positions. It's really hard, especially because overall, as you guys know, the Cardinals lineup around them is relatively young. They need their anchors to hold. Like, they need those guys to hit, I think, if they're going to be one of the relevant teams that we're talking about at the end of September.
I think the scary part for Cardinals fans, Buster, is, what it looks like beyond Goldschmidt and Arenado, and specifically Goldschmidt, because as he's been a pillar for this Cardinals team after this season, his future's uncertain with this Cardinals. And it was talked a lot about, Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman taking over. Where do you feel like the infrastructure is for this Cardinals beyond Goldschmidt and Arenado?
It's hard to say, quite frankly, because, we've looked at all these guys as being this, great wave of young players coming up. And whether it's coincidence or whether it's been injuries or whatever it is, it just feels like that the talent that we see that's there just hasn't translated as well. Jordan Walker, I don't think anybody saw this kind of trajectory for him where, he dominates the minor leagues. He makes the team out of spring training 2023 and then, going up and down. That's not typical for a high-end guy, but, Dylan Carlson, on and on. And you do wonder sort of what the internal conversation within the Cardinals when, Garcia leaves and, winds up being a dominant player in October. Rosarena Tyler O'Neill going to Boston, off to a really great start there. It has gotten to the point where it goes beyond coincidence. You just wonder who's going to translate among the young players. So the one guy I would say, Mason Wynn, looks like we're seeing the beginning of something really great.
But I did want to ask you about him, Buster, because I saw you talked about him a little bit on your podcast with Eduardo Perez. When you talk to people around the industry about Mason Wynn, he had the prospect pedigree, certainly, but we didn't even expect this offensively out of him. Thought a great arm, unbelievable defensive talent, maybe going to struggle a little bit to just be like a league average hitter. What is your current view of what Mason Wynn already is at 22 and what he could be down the road?
Well, he clearly is going to be a lot better than what people expected. And by the way, that's not unusual. I remember when Shohei Ohtani, signed with the Angels, talking with scouts and getting the feedback that, yeah, he could be a really good pitcher, but we think he's going to kind of struggle offensively. Hasn't quite turned out that way, right? Players evolve, players grow. And that's one of the cool things about the sport. What was Goldie, like a 44th round or 47th round pick? And he winds up winning a National League MVP. Mason Wynn clearly has gone beyond those expectations. For me, the fact that he is driving the ball with some authority, and the fact that you're talking about a guy as a young player has a 340 on base and has been adept enough that they're putting him at the top of the lineup. What kind of athlete he is. You know how dynamic he is. And I think probably the aptitude is ahead of where a lot of people expected.
Buster, you mentioned kind of the muddy middle right now in the National League for this Cardinals team, and you're taking on a Chicago Cubs that's in front of you in the NL Central. The Cardinals failed both times against the Brewers already this season. Does it feel like the Brewers and Cubs are that far ahead of the Cardinals, or are they closer than what we give them credit for?
No, I think they're closer than what we give them credit for. And look, and there's still a gap there. I think the Cubs have been a better team. The Brewers have been a better team. But with the Cubs, as we sit here, you're not quite sure, where the offense is going to go. Are you going to get more of the Cody Bellinger last year or more of, him struggling this year? Seiya Suzuki is probably the one consistent force in their lineup, but they're having some struggles around that. And you do wonder, Imanaga has been tremendous. And, I'm going to date myself here, but he reminds me so much of Sid Fernandez, who pitched with the Mets back in the late 80s, early 90s, where you have this unusual left-handed delivery where it feels like he's throwing uphill. And my colleague Jesse Rogers wrote a great story about him that posted on our website today, in which one hitter, and I'm paraphrasing here, essentially said, yeah, he's the worst pitcher who's great.
That's amazing.
you look at his stuff, and the fact he's 5'10", and he's not throwing 99 miles per hour, but his delivery is so unusual in the way that he releases the ball and the way that it rides that I think hitters have a hard time adjusting. So between him and Justin Steele, Assad, who's going to start on Sunday night, they have, really good pitching. I think that probably what separates them at this point from the Cardinals and from the Brewers.
And Buster Olney is our guest here on 101 ESPN for just another couple of minutes. You can, of course, see him on the Sunday night call, Cardinals versus Cubs on Sunday Night Baseball over on ESPN, and follow him on Twitter at Buster_ESPN. Buster, I did want to ask you a little bit about offense league-wide right now. It's down a little bit, not a ton, but a little bit. Last year, around this time, batting average for the league was about 7 points higher, and overall the slugging percentage was about 20 points higher than it is at this point in 2024. As you talk to people around the league, are there any hypotheses as to why offense has been down a bit in 2024?
Yeah, it's interesting because the answer is the same as why there have been pitching injuries,
Sure.
Right? Pitchers are chasing velocity. Organizations are chasing velocity. And if they're not chasing velocity, they're chasing maximum spin. Guys are just absolutely carving up, nasty breaking stuff. A little while ago, I had Paul Skeens of the Pirates taped with him for the podcast that I do. I mean, he's a great example of that. The guy's throwing 100, 102 miles an hour, with a nasty splitter that's like 95, and then he's got a, sort of a sweeping breaking ball at 89. I think pitchers are perfecting all that, and that probably is that's probably causing a lot of injuries. I don't know how baseball gets off this trajectory because teams seek it out. Players are seeking it out, throwing harder and harder, and so the teams are more and more building these staffs of drag racers, of guys who just absolutely fire it, as opposed to marathoners. And unless they, I think, put in a structural change, limiting the number of pitchers that a team can use per game, forcing the managers to trust their starter longer. Not only are you going to have the chase for velocity, but I think the offensive numbers are going to come down because guys are just throwing harder and nastier than ever.
On that note, Buster, a couple of guys have gone the other direction, and it's because they went from the bullpen to the rotation. This past offseason, Seth Lugo with the Royals. Now, he had been a starter with San Diego, but previously with the Mets, he was seen as a reliever. And then Jordan Hicks and Reynaldo Lopez go to different teams this past offseason, go from the pen to being starters for their new teams, and all three of them are having a ton of success. Buster, what's the industry stance on why this is happening? Why we're seeing guys having success going from the bullpen one place to the rotation somewhere else?
Well, I just think that each of the cases are different, right? I do think that pitchers with more tools available to them have more aptitude and more understanding of how to make changes. This is not related to any three guys you just mentioned, but, we had Yu Darvish on our game the other day. And I was talking with the Padres pitching coach, and he talked about how during games, Darvish will see what an opposing pitcher's throwing, and then he'll mimic that. Hey, he's got this kind of depth on his curveball. He releases it this way. I'm going to do that in my next bullpen session. I'm going to try that curveball. I think with all the high-speed cameras and all the feedback and all the data they're getting, pitchers are processing that better. And I'm sure that, it's Jordan Hicks. And I know Reynaldo Lopez, who I talked to last week, really worked in the offseason at Driveline, refining his slider. I just think that they have a lot of ways to get better, and they're doing that.
Buster, we'll get you out of here on this. One of the last conversations that we're talking about with the Cardinals locally is the potential of making an early trade. We saw the Padres do this with Luis Arraez. They needed a hitter. They go out and they get one early on in the season. A couple of years ago, the Brewers changed the divisional race whenever they decided to go get Willy Adames. Are there any starters, Buster, that you think could be made available sooner rather than later across Major League Baseball?
Yes, Jesus Luzardo with the Marlins is available right now. If you want to call the Marlins and you want to make an aggressive offer for him, they will listen. They demonstrated that with the Arraez, with the Arraez deal. Now, just a little while ago, I talked to an executive and asked him, "What do you hear in trade talks?" He goes, "I don't hear anything." So it's not like it's active right now. But I think that there will be teams out there. One of the teams I'm watching in terms of having available starters, the New York Mets, who've been really disappointing so far this year. David Stern's first year running that team. And I think if they become sellers, they're going to be kind of a one-stop shop for a lot of contending teams because they got a ton of guys who are marketable. Pete Alonso, Harrison Bader, Adam Ottavino, Jake Diekman. And in the rotation, Luis Severino has been better than he's been in the past. He's made adjustments. Sean Manaea is off to a really good start. Those guys are on short-term deals. So I think the Mets are going to be a team to watch when you're talking about available starting pitching.
Real quick on Luzardo, Buster, what does an aggressive offer look like for him?
Well, maybe we got an idea with the Arraez deal. What I got back from different teams was they felt like that the Marlins did well. The best prospect that they got, I believe that I have this number right, that he was the Padres, number 5 prospect. And then they filled it out with like the number 8, the number 10, that sort of thing. I suspect with Luzardo, it's going to be along the same lines that, if to get him, you're going to need like a number 3 prospect to anchor it, maybe a number 10, number 12. And here's the thing, whether you're the Cardinals or, the Atlanta Braves, maybe the Yankees, depending on Garrett Cole coming back, if you're looking for a starting pitcher, there's going to be a lot of competition because there's not going to be a lot of names out there. It's going to be a great seller's market because there's just not, to go back to your question, who's going to be available in the starting market? Not a lot. So if you're a seller, you can put a set a high price and hope that get something good for him.
Hey, Buster, it's always great to catch up. Thanks so much for the time this morning. We'll see you out at the ballpark on Sunday.
That sounds great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Got it.
Thanks, Buster.
That's Buster Olney, ESPN's MLB insider. Always appreciate his time here on BK and Ferrario. At Buster_ESPN is where you can go to find him. If you missed any of our conversation, be sure to check it out on the podcast page after the show today. 101ESPN.com. The free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Want to get into a couple of the things that he had to say in that interview? Plus 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll get to ask us anything, sports or otherwise, next here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything, sports or otherwise. But before we get to those questions, Alex, I do want to refer back to the interview we just did with Buster Olney, ESPN's MLB insider. First of all, I think he's one of the best in the business. I absolutely love talking to Buster Olney. You always get great insight from him. Let's start with what he said at the end there. You asked him, hey, what would it take to go get Jesus Luzardo if the Cardinals wanted to make a deal with the Marlins right now? He said, hey, Luzardo's available. If you want to go get a starting pitcher, that's the guy that you could go acquire now. If you want to wait, maybe the Mets are a team you could target. But right now, the Marlins know they're out of it. They're making Jesus Luzardo available. First of all, he is exactly the kind of pitcher this team is looking for. He's really good, and he, in his career at least, has been pretty durable of late. Alex, is that the kind of move that you'd be interested in? And if so, would you be willing to give up something like Thomas Saggese and Chase Davis, or Thomas Saggese and TK Roby and another prospect on the lower, like a Gordon Graceffo type? Is that something that you'd be interested in for Jesus Luzardo?
Absolutely. I think you should make that move now, because that makes you a more complete team. You have a legit number 2, 3, however you want to view it, and
you could be a 2.
You stop using Matthew Liberatore and you put him back into your bullpen. Are you relying on your offense still? Absolutely. But guess what? I don't have question marks about my offense. And if you're talking about a infielder who might be a complementary piece for a winning team in a couple of years, I think you got plenty of those on this team right now. And frankly, I don't need some of those pitchers in my system if I go get Jesus Luzardo, because he's what I hope those guys become. So yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I would too, because you need a number 2 at some point. Like their biggest need currently is a number 5, but you can make Michaelis the number 5 by acquiring Luzardo, and then you kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And I kind of agree. If it is a package of like Chase Davis and Thomas Saggese, I'm okay with that, because Chase Davis is a couple years away. You're going to part with him. That's fine. And then Saggese, I just don't know what his role is with the team moving forward. Like, he feels like one of those guys that is currently blocked, and I don't know how you get him playing time at the big leagues, not just this year, but beyond. So, yeah, I would be open to making that kind of a move right now.
I think Saggese, the thing that makes it really interesting with him, and he's not a 1-for-1, I want to make that very clear. If you're selling at the deadline and Arenado becomes a player that you are selling, Saggese could become either your second baseman long-term and replacement of Nolan Gorman, or your third baseman, depending on how you view him defensively. So that's something to keep in mind there. As a right-handed bat, you're going to need some of those, because you got a lot of lefties right now. That would be the one thing that would kind of pull me back from this. But if you're really going for it, if you believe in this roster, this is the kind of move that I think they probably should be trying to make right now. All right, let's get to some of these texts. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. Guys, when you're grilling, are you listening to sports radio? Are you listening to podcasts? Are you listening to music? The texter said that they listen to 101 ESPN all the time, especially when they're grilling. First of all, sir, madam, thank you for doing that. We appreciate it, certainly.
It better
Alex,
be BK and Ferrario all the time. That's what's most important. Well, I have a 3-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old daughter at home, so unfortunately, I get 101 ESPN in the car a little bit when I'm driving with them, but at home, it is strictly Disney music. So I listen to a lot of music at home, but when I'm not driving in the car with the 101 on, it's typically podcasts.
I take my laptop outside with me and I set it down on the table behind me and I watch baseball, whether that's the Cardinal game or there's just another baseball game on, like Cardinals aren't playing or they haven't started yet. I've always got some sort of baseball game on that I'm watching when I'm grilling.
Interesting. I'll go pretty much 50-50. I go music half the time and I'll go podcast half the time. And if there's something that I think we could listen to, a lot of the time I'm listening to podcasts to try to find content for our show. The content game is never ending, and so you're just always listening to see, hey, could this spark a conversation? Could this be something that we could talk about? So when I'm listening to podcasts, that's typically the way that I listen to them for the most part. But yeah, otherwise I'm listening to most likely some kind of alternative rock while I'm out grilling. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, go ahead and get them in right now. Guys, would you like to see what the minor league depth looks like before making a trade for the Cardinals? We still haven't seen McGreevy, Graceffo, or Robersa. I think that it is telling that the Cardinals have told you so far that they are not interested in seeing that.
How long have we been talking about McGreevy and Graceffo?
And instead, We have seen them go to Matthew Liberatore. So their actions tell you all you need to know. I don't think they view those guys as being ready now or potentially down the road. And if that's the case, I would not be concerned about making a trade.
Yeah, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I don't think the depth is that important for a team that's trying to win in this window now. And when you know what your weakness is, if you have an opportunity to pounce, you can always upgrade the areas that you trade away. But if you got an opportunity to pounce and win, it's the mistake the Cardinals made a couple of years ago. They wouldn't pounce because they didn't want to give away their prospects. You got an opportunity.
Yeah, in theory, they should be probably trying to add 2 pitchers right now so they can have some built-in depth, because if Luzardo say they traded for Luzardo and Michaelis gets hurt, you're right back to where you were, where you have Liberatore back as that guy because they clearly don't trust their depth options. They're like 2 starting pitchers short right now. That's how I feel about the St. Louis Cardinals, and I know like Matz will be coming back at some point. Look, you need like 7 legitimate starters to make it through a big league season now.
All right, final thing here from the 573. Do you guys think that Luther Burden has a real chance to win the Heisman? Not really, no.
Doesn't play quarterbacks.
I was going to say, I've heard quarterbacks only win that award.
Devontae Smith was the last guy to do it, and it took like just this unreal season by him and playing on an unbelievable team. So if Mizzou goes undefeated this year, he'll have a shot, but it would require them to go undefeated this year as the starting point.
And Burton did this a little bit last year. I don't know if he did it all season long. I can't remember. But Smith was the kickoff guy, the punt return guy. Like, you have to rack up serious yards on special team as well.
Yeah, you've got to get like 25 touchdowns over the course of the season in one way or another. And if you do that and you're undefeated, you'll have a chance. The odds of Luther Burden doing that, regardless of how special I think he is, and I think he's a top 5 to 10 talent in next year's draft, I think it's unlikely, unfortunately, because of the position. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. YouTube chat is off and running, youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. But most of all, I want to hear from you via the mic drop feature. Coming up next, are you currently rooting for the Cardinals to get back on track? Or do you want to see change? Are you still rooting for change despite their recent uptick in performance? I don't think you can have both. Which are you currently rooting for more? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, so a question that's very simple, hard to answer, though, I think, for a lot of Cardinals fans right now. Are you rooting for the Cardinals to keep going? You want this winning to continue? You want to see them get back into the race, not only for the wild card, but potentially for the division? Or are you so sick of what we've been watching over the past few seasons, the half measures, the middling teams, the team that just tries like hell to get to 85 wins and then maybe add a little bit more at the deadline to get to 90? Are you tired of that? And so you're just rooting for change at this point. And we know what would be necessary for change. It's a lot of losing the rest of the way and selling once again at the deadline. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. What are you rooting for right now? Because it feels like there is a fork in the road moment that's taking place this weekend. Last year at this exact same time, we were coming off of a massive series win against the Dodgers. It felt like things were on the up and up, and then boom, everything came crashing back down to earth once again afterwards, and it led to the disaster that was the 2023 season. I think this has the potential to be that kind of a series, one way or the other, where you look back on it and say, hey, this was the stretch of games when we knew the Cardinals were going to get back into things. Or this was the series in which things started going back down because Liberatore started again. We clearly saw that they had a need for a number 5 starter. Michaelis goes 4, Libby goes 3, the bullpen's shot. It ends up trickling down into their grade A where they don't have their best relievers available for them. Like, I could see something like that happening this weekend. I'm rooting for the good, though. I want to see this team back in the playoffs, man. I want to see it so badly. I know that Goldie and Arenado have not been good this year, and I understand why people want change. I really do. I don't blame you at all. But watching good Cardinals baseball over the last week or two has been a solid reminder for me of how much fun it is and how miserable it is to watch bad baseball all summer long, dude. We got nothing else here, man. Yes, the Battlehawks are going, and that's great. There's a couple weeks left of that, and then it's over. Yeah, we're going to have the Blues off season, and that's great, but let's be real here. They're probably not going to make huge moves that end up really giving us like 3 to 4 weeks of conversation. This is a Cardinals town through and through. And I want them to be good. So I'm rooting for this thing to get back on track starting this weekend with the Cubs series. Alex, where do you stand?
I think I stand on the other side. I want them to be good, but I don't want them to be good for a season and then we go through the same problems next year. I want them to be good and I want them to stay good. Like, you're about 10 years removed from a 5-year stretch where you not only were a World Series contender, but you were dangerous from the regular season into the postseason. And you haven't been that team since 2016. And it just feels a lot like you're a wild card team and then you get bounced. It feels like I ask myself, can this team win a World Series at their best? And I don't believe they can, even with Goldschmidt and Arenado hitting, because I don't think the front office is going to make the right moves to make this a World Series contender. So I look at it and I say, what's the only way to get back to that? And I think it's change. And for that, I hate talking about failure because I want to see this team win, but I feel like a lot of Cardinals fans, I don't want to see this team just kind of back into a second or a third place wild card, get beaten 3 games, and then do the same thing next year where a month and a half in, we're talking about this team being awful. They go on a hot pace, they struggle again, and then they get in. We're doing it over and over and over. I want to get back to what that 5 or 6 year stretch felt like, where every season we were talking about a World Series. And I think the only way you can do that is with change.
Somebody on the text line said, BK, don't forget about St. Louis City SC. Just because they're not winning either, I don't want you to hear or to forget about them. For sure. The city is also something that we have going for us here. But again, I'm not saying anything that you guys don't already know. This is a Cardinals town through and through. It's just the reality of St. Louis. Like, this is a Cardinals-centric city. And I do not believe that that is a controversial statement whatsoever. We're getting a lot of conflicting texts, by the way, Alex, and I figured this would be the case. I get it. 314 says, win or lose, I just want them to be exciting. It's been so long since we've had a fun team to watch here in St. Louis. From the 618, bring on the losing. I'm ready for change and for the Cardinals to stop being mediocre. From the 919, I personally still want change. I think it's great that the players are finally performing, but I think Mo said it best. We are growing tired of him, and I I want a different thought process in the front office. He had a great run, but it's time for a set of new ideas. And one more here from the 314. Guys, I'm torn on this. I want the Cardinals to succeed. I want them to do well, but change is necessary. They needed a miracle run in 2021 to get to the postseason. They needed a Pujols resurgence in 2022, and then 2023 fell flat. 2024 was well on its way to falling flat once again. If there aren't sweeping changes, I would expect more of the same and being stuck in the middle again in 25, 26, and beyond.
This team just doesn't feel like a team that can do damage in the playoffs. Even if we're starting to believe, it just doesn't feel like a team that can do damage in the playoffs. And that's the part for me. I don't believe you can get back to that until you make some type of change. But there's always that hanging caveat over that, to where even if you change a president of baseball operations and John Mozeliak is gone, the DeWitts still own the team. And the DeWitts have a mindset that John Mozeliak is working with them towards with this team. So it's so hard to say. It just is so infuriating when we buy back into a Cardinals team that feels like they figured it out, and then they go through another dip, and then they play well, and then they go through another dip. You end the season as a wild card, and you get bounced in 2 games. That's the part that I think is infuriating, to the point where it's like, let's just see change.
So I guess where I go to the other side on that, like them having a chance to win in the postseason, it's because I think there have been a lot of teams that make the postseason, get in, and this is why presidents of baseball operations operate the way that they do. You see them, they get into the playoffs, last year's Diamondbacks, for example, and then you see like a different team emerge once you get to the postseason. The Diamondbacks were not a team during the regular season that looked like they could do damage in the postseason. None of us saw that coming. Anybody that tells you otherwise is lying. Nobody saw it. The 2014 Royals were 48-50 through 98 games, and then go on this miraculous run through the postseason, get to the World Series, and are beat essentially by Madison Bumgarner. Hell, those Giants teams, for the most part, they were good, don't get me wrong. I don't know that people went into the postseason saying, juggernaut, that team is going to do damage once it gets into the playoffs. And the Mets have done that in the past. When they went to the World Series back in 2015, the Phillies a few years ago, the Washington Nationals a few years ago. Like, a lot of teams, the Braves, when they won it, a lot of these teams that get to the playoffs, people don't expect to do damage, and then it just clicks for them for whatever reason, and they go on this crazy run. 2011 Cardinals were an example of that. 2006 Cardinals, another example of that. As currently constructed, I don't think the Cardinals can do it. I don't. Could they go make a trade for Jesus Luzardo or somebody else that fits in as a number 2 starter and then go on a run? Yeah, I really do think they could. And so that's why I have a hard time rooting for change now as opposed to rooting for them to do something that gets them into the postseason, is because I still believe that this team and many of the others that are in the middle of the National League, I don't think we should be totally out on them right now.
But the reason that I'm rooting for change is because, yeah, we think that they could make the move for Luzardo, but in the back of my mind, I know they won't. I know they won't make a move. Look at the Liberatore situation. Any other front office would have said, we need to make a change here and go get Brad Keller on waivers. And like, you just think of some of the financial decisions that they made in the past, and it just doesn't feel like you're making the decisions swayed toward a World Series team. If they go make the trade for Jesus Luzardo, to me, I'm all on board, because that's leaning into, hey, we're a World Series contender, or we feel like we are if we make the necessary changes. But in the back of my mind, it's that little devil on your shoulder that's like, oh, it's not going to happen. So don't get excited about it. Just shut it down, because it's not going to happen.
I also think it's fair to say that there might not be changes if they lose again, because so far we've seen that they have not exactly made the changes. So you might root for losing and not get what you want at the end. And so now you got the worst of both worlds. Bad team, not the changes that you were looking for, and now you just got a crap summer of baseball.
And that's where it comes down to where I said, like, the caveat over all of this is like, look, it's not a Pobo decision. This is like the ownership group. And if the owners don't want to invest in trading their prospects for that, that's never going to happen.
All right, let's go to the mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app. Let's hear from you. Are you rooting for the Cardinals to get back on track, get the winning going once again, or are you so invested in them having change at the highest of levels, non-ownership edition, that you just want to see them get back to losing again because you're rooting for that change more than you're rooting for the Cardinals to win this season? Let's hear from Michael.
I want to see change, but I don't want to see the change that everyone wants to see. Everyone wants to see Mo and Ollie get fired. I honestly don't think that accomplishes anything. I would like to see two different types of changes. You were just talking about trading for a front end of the rotation pitcher. Let's do that. We have a lot of people in our minor league system that's good, not great. So let's move them. Let's get a proven commodity now. The other thing I'd like to see is an organizational philosophy change. Does that come with the removal of Mo? Maybe. But we started seeing all these problems and this development and evaluation problem when they decided to have the same teaching philosophy go from single A ball all the way to the major leagues. And what are we seeing? We're seeing pitchers who can't be developed and hitters who can't be developed. Let's change the organizational philosophy.
So let's change Mo.
Yeah, that's what that would be.
That's what that is.
And I
agree with the Ollie thing. Like, if you get a different Pobo, maybe you got a different looking roster, and maybe Ollie has more success.
Potentially. I think if you get a different Pobo, though, you're not keeping Ollie. Ollie won't be around if there's a change at the highest of levels in the organization. Yeah, the philosophy change would necessitate Mo being out. I agree on the number 2 starter, though. I think that's something that could really change the complexion of this roster, but it would require them to be aggressive in a way that they haven't been in a really long time. Let's hear from Dan.
Are you guys freaking kidding me?
Whoa.
Yeah, keep playing like crap. I'm sick of seeing Marmol in the dugout. I'm sick of seeing Mo's bow tie. So, yes, please, stop winning and lose. I want them gone. We all want them gone.
Oh. He revved the engine after he said that.
He was a little upset.
Be careful out there, Dan.
It's interesting to me. I don't know that I can remember a time in which I've heard Cardinals fans rooting so much for the losing because of what it necessitates via change. I think it speaks to the frustration. I don't think it's apathy right now. I think it's frustration level.
Someone asked an interesting question, and I'm curious your thoughts. Take the same Cardinals roster, the same place that they're in right now, and instead of Mo and DeWitt, you have Stillman and Armstrong. Do people feel different?
You know how I feel about this.
I'm with you, but
I don't think that they operate as differently as people would like to believe. I think Army is more open and honest, and I think he says it in a different way that is more likable. I think if you switched their situations, though, no, I don't think people feel differently. I think people would like Doug Armstrong to be fired. I think that's how it would be. If Doug Armstrong's most recent Stanley Cup was in 2011 and not in 2019, I think people are calling for him to be fired with the Blues.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest difference is it's more recent. It's 5 years instead of 13 years.
Yeah.
And if it had been different, if they are flipped, if Mo had a World Series in 2019, I don't think people are calling for him to be fired right now. It's because the most recent postseason success was 13 years ago. That's the difference to me. All right, let's hear from Timothy.
I hate to be the guy that roots for them to lose, but I just think if they win, if they get in, squeeze the playoffs, they're just going to be the same stuff over and over and over. I hate that mindset of, make the playoffs, see what happens. No, they should try to be, their goal should be building for the World Series, not to just make the playoffs. So if they just squeak in and make the playoffs, once again, they'll go with the mindset of, we made it. We did, we completed our goals. Ollie did a good job. Ollie should have never been hired as manager. I'm sorry. He should not have been. He is not a good manager. At the same time, there still needs a wholesale change in the front office. I just think Mo's approach has jumped the shark. It's time for a new voice.
I think people view Ollie as a bad manager because they view him as an extension of Mo. If you ask people honestly, why do they think that Ollie's a bad manager? And just, hey, can you please use examples from this year? I don't think people would have many.
He uses analytics.
No, I'm serious. I don't think that there are many examples of Ollie being a bad manager this year. I think early on there were a couple of weird things that took place, but over the last few weeks, I think Ollie's done a really good job. I think he's maximized this roster over the last month or so.
I think it's more so a lot of people feel like a manager should be the leader of a team, and if you go through as long of a stretch of bad baseball as they did in the month and a half, that the manager should pull them out of it. Right or wrong, if you believe that, we'll find out if he did.
I mean, they were winning over the last 10 games.
But was it a hot streak, or did you do it consistently?
If I'm going to give him the blame for the losses, I also have to credit him when they're winning.
Hey man, you asked the question. I'm just giving you reasoning behind it.
I think it's a bad answer.
Okay.
I disagree with it. Not from you, but if that's the explanation from fans as to why he's a bad manager, I just totally and wholeheartedly disagree with that.
What do people say when they say bad manager? They say bad leader. Those are
what
two
is
together.
the example, though? What is
I
the
don't know. That's the
explanation
thing.
as to why he is a
We've
bad
all
leader?
discussed
Don't just
about
say not you, Alex. I apologize. I'm blaming you. For other people, don't just say bad leader. Explain why. Explain why he is a bad leader. And if you have examples of that, hey man, fair. But I don't know that I have those examples right now.
A lot of what we heard last year, and I don't know if it was the leadership thing, but it was, they're not playing Cardinals ball. They're not good defensively. They make outs on the base pass. Well, you can't point to that this year. And I don't even think that's really a manager thing. I think that's, do you have the right players playing in the right positions?
Thing.
And their defense is better. Their running the base is better.
The manager thing came in with Taylor Motter playing so much.
And that one was totally fair. Motter playing as much as he did last year was
I didn't think he had a great year last year.
Yeah, I didn't think Ollie was great last year, but I think the way he's utilized the bullpens like they did last in that doubleheader win yesterday or 2 days ago was really impressive. I think the lineup construction that he's done for the most part, I don't have much criticism of. Like, they're not going to move Goldie Arnado to the 7-8 hole. Like, no baseball team would do that.
It's also a losing situation that they're putting Ollie in. Not that the Cardinals are, but like his time started with Pujols and Yachty, so no credit was given to Ollie. It was all Pujols and Yachty. Then it was Skip Schumacher. Then it's now Daniel Descalzo. And it's never been, oh, well, Ollie's got it. It's always there's somebody behind the scenes that's working the marionette that is Ollie Marmol.
It's a really good point.
So you take credit away from him all the time because it's Pujols and Yachty.
He's not allowed to get credit, but he gets all of the blame.
Skip Schumacher should have been the manager because he was pulling the strings. Sure. Now, if they win this season, Daniel Descalzo should be the manager. He's pulling the strings.
I would also say, like, there's somebody else on the text line that says he's a bad manager because they're losing. Okay.
Skip must suck then.
Skip's clearly a bad manager. You look out in San Diego, they are 27-26 right now. Their manager is Mike Schilt, who many that point to Ollie as being a bad manager will point to and say that guy was the great manager and we were wrong to fire him. And just wait until 2 weeks from now. The Cardinals have a better record than the Padres. Then people are going to be twisting themselves into pretzels as to why Ollie is having success.
I can't get on board there.
And that's going to be wild, isn't it?
If that's the reasoning behind it, then stop asking for Joe Madden to be the manager here because he hasn't been a good manager since 2016.
He failed spectacularly with the Angels.
Yeah, with Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, but the Cardinals have all this talent. No, go get Joe Madden. He's okay. All right, sure.
The petting zoo will fix it.
Coming up next, we got to get some more of your mic drops.
I like it.
Are you rooting for the Cardinals to get back on track, or do you think that it's time for them to just have so much change that you're actually rooting for them actively to lose? Talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. All right, we're hearing from some of you guys via the mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app. The question of the day today, are you rooting for the Cardinals to get back on track? You want them to go out, sweep the Cubs this weekend, get into a place where you're really feeling like they're in the thick of the playoff race again? Or are you so out on the Cardinals because of what you've seen, basically 2016 to where we are today, as you're just rooting for change? And so, honestly, you're rooting for a sweep, but not in favor of the Cardinals. You're rooting for the Cubs to sweep because you want sweeping changes across the organization.
You know, T-Bone, I've come to the conclusion we should start rooting for them to be good because BK will stop yelling at us if they are good.
That's 100% correct.
I'll stop getting tone if this team is good.
No,
I do apologize. In the last segment, I told Alex that was a bad answer. It had nothing to do with him.
He was yelling at you guys.
And everything to do with you, the texters that are making me mad right now. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. We've got some great mic drops today on where people stand on this question. Alex, I really do understand both perspectives, honestly. I personally just want to watch good baseball. I get so sick of watching bad baseball. I don't want to see that again, even if that leads to sweeping changes. I also think they would just end up hiring the Pobo that used to be with the Boston Red Sox. And after hearing some interviews, I'm not super interested in that either. And I don't think it would lead to any philosophical changes.
Michael Gersh is there.
Yeah, I think they would just hire Hein Bloom. And I think it would look a lot like what you saw with
your
Mo.
Pitching development would be better.
Except maybe even fewer chances taken by the front office, which, whew, yikes. So that's my fear. Let's go back out to the mic drop feature. Let's hear from the first Robert.
Hey guys, change, please. Oh my gosh, I am so tired of the same story every year for the last, I don't know, decade, where we just scrape and hang on and barely get into the playoffs, knowing that we don't have the starting pitching to even make a sound once we get there.
Scratch and claw.
I don't care if we lose 162 games for a year. If it means the year after that, or sometime reasonably soon, we have a team that's truly built to compete for a World Series championship. That's the train I want to get on.
I get it. Everybody wants to be a part of a winner, right? Everybody wants to be on the team that does what Texas did, does what Houston did, does what the Dodgers have done, does what the Boston Red Sox in 2018 did. Unfortunately, what led to that winning for the most part was a lot of losing, like years and years and years of pain. I don't want to go through that personally. I don't want to go through a rebuild. It sucks to watch 4 straight years of a club that loses 90-plus games every single season, Alex. It's brutal. And even if you do end up getting through all of that crap, you might end up being the Tigers that are stuck in the same position that you're in right now at the end of their current version of their rebuild. So it does not always work. When it works, it looks great. Unfortunately, for a lot of teams, it never clicks. And so they end up just in a situation where they continue losing 90 games every year, and it doesn't end up getting back on track. So I understand the calls for that change. I really do. I'm just not sure that the success rate of those tanks are something worth getting down to the bottom for.
Again, the part that I always have to remind myself when we go down this conversation of like, yeah, I want to see change. You're wanting to see changes in terms of a guy who's in a position that is run by his boss. And anybody you put in that position is still going to be run by his boss. Remember what Bill DeWitt III said to Martin Kilcoyne? He chuckled and he's like, yeah, if you stop coming to the ballpark, we're going to stop spending. That guy doesn't change his philosophy if you put a new president of baseball operations in play. Dombrowski comes here. Dombrowski's not coming here because he's not able to do what he does elsewhere because the Cardinals have a philosophy. And whether it's Mo, whether it's Hein Bloom, whether it's you listening right now that's a Pobo, you have a boss that you have to answer to. And when you go to him saying, hey, I'd like to throw $400 million at Bryce Harper, not going to happen.
So just for context on this as well, teams that have ended up in the World Series despite winning like 90-ish games or fewer. Last year, the Diamondbacks, 84 wins. 2022 Phillies, 87 wins. 2021 Braves, 88 wins at the end of the year. The Nationals in 2019 won 93 games. The 2014 Giants won 88, ended up winning the World Series that year. That same season, they played against the Royals, who won 89 games. And finally, the 2015 Mets, who won 90 games. A lot of teams are getting to the World Series of late with roughly 87 to 92 wins at the end of the year. And I think the Cardinals are more than capable of getting there. All right, let's hear from Janet.
I have faith in the Cardinals this year. If Mo does his job and gets us one more starter, I think we can take it all because we have some good hitters. I do believe that Arenado and Goldie are going to come back, and the rest of the young players, they're really contributing. And we just need that one more starting pitcher because our bullpen has been fixed. We have a good bullpen, and it's even better if Libby can get back in the bullpen and we can have a good starting pitcher.
Man, this is the same individual who was chanting Mo must go 2 weeks ago.
Well, he got rid of analytics.
Technically, that was the purge, though. Technically, that was the purge, and we don't hold that against anybody.
Dude, Janet's back. They won her over. They won Janet over. They got her back before they got me back.
Yeah, but they won Janet over because she thinks Mo got rid of analytics.
And he did. Clearly, they're winning.
Okay,
they can't win if they have those analytics.
I tell you what, Janet, I can't wait for Tuesday after the Cardinals don't win a game against the Cubs.
Chill. Let's hear from the second version of Robert.
Hey, guys. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing fun about rooting for your team to lose. There's nothing fun about that. I think with the team that we've built, too, like, again, that's the most frustrating part about all of this. And I think that's why it's like our who we're blaming changes almost week to week, although, you know, Mo tends to get the brunt of it. But, I mean, everything on paper says this should be a competitive team. This should be an entertaining team. This should be a good team. You will have a good time at the ballpark watching this baseball team. And yet, it's been meh. I don't know. Like, Michael has looked awesome. They gave him some money, and he's looked pretty mediocre since. Yeah. Matt's, whenever he is healthy and pitching, it looks great. Yeah. Gorman has been fun to watch him kind of blossom, yet at the same time, you get frustrated with the swing and miss. Yeah. And, you know, Goldie and Arenado, man, like, gosh, I want to see them lift the trophy up so bad. I really do. So it's hard. I want us to win. I think if you win, too, you got to push for it. It's the team you built. It's the team you have. I think being in the middle is going to just keep us in the middle. You got to go all in, right? So I'm going all in. Go Cardinals.
I respect it. I do wonder what this team looks like. If one of Goldie or Arenado start hitting for power and you get Wilson Contreras back and Jordan Walker looks like himself the rest of the season. I know that's a lot, like what I just said was a lot of different things that have to quote unquote hit, and not just in the literal sense, but also in the metaphorical sense. Wilson Contreras has to be healthy when he returns from the injured list, and that's no sure thing given what he's dealing with right now. Jordan Walker has to come back up to the big leagues after having success down in the minors to some degree and hit like he did at the end of last season. And you need one of Goldie or Arenado to do something they literally have not done all season long so far through almost 50 games. It's a lot to ask. This offense could be damn good, though, if you get those things all clicking into place. So, yeah, it's got the chance to be a fun team the rest of the way.
I could win water if I put down the right numbers.
If its and buts could be candies and nuts.
Come together.
Nice.
All right, last mic drop. Let's hear from Mike.
I am kind of in the same boat as you, BK.
Yeah.
Part of me wants to see them blow it up to get a change in some management, which might bring different roster building strategies and different mindsets. But I also don't want to sit through 4, 5, 6 years of really crappy baseball that I don't even want to watch. With the Blues kind of looking like they're going to be scuffling a bit and be a couple of years before they're ready to actually get after it again and make some noise in the Western Conference and make runs at a cup. I don't want to go through 3 to 5 years of underwhelming Cardinal baseball either and then have that amount of time with no playoff sports in St. Louis. Nothing's better than playoff sports. And ultimately, if the Cardinals win 88 games and are in the playoffs, I'm going to be fired up and tuned in. Game 1 of the wild card.
What's funny about that is, to me, is unfortunately you just lived through that. 3 to 5 years of like underwhelming baseball, and then 2019 happened, and you felt like, hey, here we go.
But people didn't. Are you talking about for the Cardinals?
Yeah, 2016 through 2018, the Cardinals, it was underwhelming. I mean, didn't make the playoffs.
What I'm saying is people did not believe in that 2019 team.
But what I'm saying is at least you saw progress. You're like, playoffs, we won a series, and then you got swept. And then what happened? Lost in the wild card, lost in the wild card, lost in the wild card, last place. I mean...
Like,
what he just mentioned was like, you don't want to do that, but you just did it and saw the repercussions of it.
Now I'm starting over again. But if you do that, if you do what you're talking about, now for the next 3 to 5 years, it's not just mediocre, it's bad. Like, you're winning 70 games or fewer for the next 3 to 5 years. Donovan, gone. Sonny Gray, gone. Wilson Contreras, gone. Goldie, well, he's gone anyways. Arenado, gone. Like, the guys that you know their names and you want to see in a Cardinals uniform, the vast majority of them, other than, like, Walker, Gorman, Wynn, basically everybody else on this roster in Herrera has to go. And now you're starting completely new and from square one because you have no pitchers essentially in your minor leagues other than Tink Hintz that appear to be guys that you'll be winning with at the next stage of your roster.
But can't you turn it around with making change and having a bad year? Because you have
like one bad year?
Yeah, no. You have bad pieces. You have pieces in place that you can win with.
Because if you're saying that it's that bad that you got to completely overhaul the situation, well, then you're 3 to 5 years away. You got to tank for 3 to 5 years.
But if you're hoping that it turns around this season, understand that you're using the same person in charge that took you through 3 bad years.
But he's only got 1 more year. Either way, I'm getting change at the end of next year. Either way. That's why I'm not rooting for change right now. Like, I believe that they are going to go in whether it's the same direction, different, somebody else will be the voice of the organization starting in 2026.
What if they do it in 2 years? And you had no success this year or next year?
Well, I mean, in terms of what? Like,
in terms of you don't make the playoffs this year, next year, and then you get to what we're talking about 2 years from now with someone else in charge.
Yeah, if they fail this year spectacularly, they're going to make the change that you're talking about. Like, it'll end up in the situation that you're saying. So I'm just rooting for them to have success. If they end up getting to the playoffs this year, I think that's going to make for a really fun summer. And I'm here for good times. I'm here for the good vibes. I want to put on the conductor hat. I want to be going choo-choo and talking about the Cardinals every day in a way that's positive and fun and entertaining for people.
I just don't want to get yelled at, so I'm in.
I don't enjoy the doom and gloom talk as much. It's not fun for me.
Isn't this like your kind of day outside where I
was going to say,
it's beautiful outside.
Rain clouds.
This is my ideal weather. Coming up next, we got to talk about the defenseman market because, whoo boy, Alex, I want no part of this. Talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Heritage Deer Day Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals back in action tonight as they start a 3-game set with the Chicago Cubs. 7:15 will be first pitch. Shota Imanaga will get the start for Chicago, and Miles Michaelis will be on the mound for St. Louis. The sports update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
All right, Alex, earlier today I was reading about some of the rumblings for the free agency market. This comes from Pierre LeBrun, and he wrote about Nikita Zadorov, the guy that has become the belle of the ball on the fast lane. Jamie loves this dude. He's big, he's physical, he plays for the Vancouver Canucks. He plays a gritty playoff style that the Blues have been lacking, especially from a left-handed defenseman.
Where's Vancouver at right now in the playoffs?
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
He played well when they were in the postseason.
He did.
All right, so he says, Pierre LeBrun, $5.5 to $6 million per year could be the market that he's looking for this year via free agency. Earlier today, another NHL insider, Frank Saravalli, said he thinks 5 years at $5.5 million per year is roughly the market that he's projecting for Nikita Zadorov. Alex, if this is the case, if this is what these guys are looking for, I'm out. I just, a 29-year-old defenseman for the current situation that the Blues are in, I like Nikita Zadorov a lot. If you could get him on his current deal, $3.75 million AAV, I'm in. I could not be more in on acquiring that player, plop him into the Blues lineup. Let's see him top pair defensively with Colton Parayko, and let's see what those guys can do together. But at $5.5 million per year, maybe $6 million per year for a guy that I think is pretty good, but you're once again locking yourself into a long-term deal for a 30-plus-year-old defenseman? Yeah, no, not given where the Blues are at. I want that deal for that player 2 years from now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You sign that to the deal, that does nothing for you for the first 3 years of it. And it does everything for you on the back end. But by that time, what does Nikita Zadorov look like? Because it's hard to play that gritty of a style when you're 33, 34, 35 years old and you're playing 20 minutes a night. Like, if you were to tell me that I could just wipe away one of my $6.5 million defensive contracts, I'd probably sign that because it puts you in a better position than when you're at right now. But I'm already allocating $17 million to three defensemen that one of them probably profiles as a top four in Justin Falk. And other than that, I'm not sure the other ones do. But, like, that's the market for defensemen right now. I mean, you are talking astronomical numbers. Brandon Montour, who's 30 years old, is going to get $7.5 million. Like you just mentioned Zadorov. You've got a guy in Shane Gostisbehere, who played for Detroit this past year, who's 31. He's projected to get $5.5 million. The market is, I think a lot of GMs are horned up to spend money because the salary cap has been so tight that they're like, well, let's go out and spend. Stay the hell away from this because it doesn't benefit you to lock yourself up to $6 million to a guy that 4 years from now, when you hope to compete for a cup, he's not even the same player that you signed in that contract. Plus, Zadorov scares me just because, like I mentioned previously, that screams a lot of, hey, recent playoff success, let's give you a ton of money, and then where does that go once you sign that contract?
You know what market I'm looking at? This Oliver Shillington market. 1 year, $1.1 million. Left pair defenseman. He's had a lot of question marks off the field.
Joel Edmondson, 2 years, $1.6 million.
Yeah, I'm in on that market
Mike
right now.
Hoffman, 1 year, $1 million. Oh, okay, sorry. Too far. Guys, I went too far.
Ian Cole, 1 year, $2.1 million. Yeah. Now, Ian Cole is like 100 years old. But he's big. Hard. He plays the style that we're talking about. He's like 60% of Nikita Zadorov, and I'm paying him on a 1 year deal to come in and just, hey, can you be a really physical defenseman in my third pair for me this year? If you can do that, I feel pretty good about it. Like that's the market that I'm playing at for this team right now. If they get back on track over the next couple of seasons and look like a contender heading into 2025 or 2026, now I'm going and getting whoever that offseason's version of Nikita Zadorov is. Mm-hmm. Now I'm playing in those waters. And I'm just living with the fact that by year 4 and 5 of the contract, it's going to be ugly. You're not going to love the money that you're spending on that player. But the first 3 years, I got the best version of that guy while I'm in contention. Right now, You're paying for their best years while you're not good, and you're getting their worst years when you're trying to contend. I don't know how that is the best timeline for what you're trying to accomplish.
If I'm signing any, like, Shillington's different because, like, he's missed hockey these last couple of years for personal reasons. He's 27 years old, and he had top 4 potential with Calgary a couple of years ago before we kind of stepped away from the game. That one I'd take a flyer on because, hey, he might be a top 4 guy for you, and he's 27 years old.
See?
All of these
You're on board.
Exactly.
Let's do it.
All of these other guys, though, if I'm making a signing, it's going to be for 1 or 2 years, and it's going to be a guy who could provide me leadership and a badass attitude. Like who you just mentioned, Yanni Hakanpää, who plays for Dallas right now, former Blues prospect, actually. 32 years old, $1.5 million for a year. It's literally what he's making right now. At best, he's a third-pair defenseman, but he plays with a pissed-off attitude. Go get that guy for a year because otherwise none of these other guys make sense until you're ready to compete. And all this is doing is it's providing you an asset to trade at the deadline that might get you a 4th-round pick.
Somebody on the text line said, guys, what's Dakota Joshua's market look like? He's young. He's physical. He's a guy that I'd be interested in. 4 years, $3.5 million per. You interested?
No.
For a 4th-line player?
No.
3.5 per at 4 years? Nah, man.
I'll take Nathan Walker for $950,000. Yeah.
One guy that I did find interesting in terms of his market on this, because we've talked about him a lot in the past of, hey, could this be somebody that maybe fits into your middle 6? He kind of fits the criteria of what you're looking for there. Jake DeBrusk, 5 years at almost $6 million per season. I'm not willing to give that kind of money for a Jake DeBrusk. I'd love to have Jake DeBrusk, but just not at that contract, unfortunately.
Unless the player has top 6 potential for the next 5 years, no, I'm not doing that.
And I think Jake DeBrusk is more, he plays differently, different style, but I think ultimately, like if you were doing the NHL video game, like the overall rating, I think the overall rating for Jake DeBrusk is probably pretty similar to what you had with Brandon Saad when you signed him.
Right now.
That's the market.
4 years from now, it's probably going to be an overall of like Kevin Hayes.
I think his contract will age similarly to the Brandon Saad deal, where it's a middle 6 guy that probably is a third line player for a really good contender team.
Maybe.
There's nothing wrong with that, but you already have Brandon Saad, so you can't go sign another guy to a $6 million updated version of that deal. That's why I would not sign that deal unless you traded Brandon Saad, in which case, sure, go sign Jake DeBrusk. I've got no problem with having him on the roster. 5 years seems like a lot, though.
If I'm dipping my toe in any free agent waters, it's got to be money in, money out. If I'm bringing you in, it's because I wiped that amount of money off of my books.
He's Alex. It's T-Bone on BK. The junk drawer is coming up next. Alex says he's got a good story for us here on BK and Ferrario. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, let's dive into the juncture. Alex, what do you got for us today?
So, guys, I had one of those you got to be bleeping kidding me moments last night.
Boy.
I really should have documented it video-wise, but, my wife was laughing hysterically, so she just took a couple of pictures. So I do have photo evidence. So I got home last night, took the girls over to the grandparents, had to do some spraying for my dad, and so I went over there, took the girls, we went to dinner, we came home. Got them to bed. My wife got home, and I said, I'm going to start doing some laundry because it's piling up. So I have the laundry basket sitting next to our staircase, and I just bought a bottle of laundry detergent. I put it on top of the laundry basket, and I was going to walk down the stairs. Picked up the laundry basket, detergent bottle flies right off, bounces 4 stairs, breaks open, and explodes all over my carpet. And look at these pictures, BK. Oh, I'll show this to our video team. This is our baby gate that we have. Do you see the soap suds on it?
That's good.
Yeah. Like, no joke. It was 6 stairs up, and just a pile of it was at the bottom of our staircase. So I busted out the carpet cleaner. Guys, this happened at about 9 o'clock last night. I didn't stop until 12:30. The carpet cleaner I had was just soaking up suds nonstop. Like, watch this video. Where's it at? Hold on.
It's the first one.
Yeah, first one. Look at this, T-Bone. I'll show this to our camera, too. This is opening the gate.
Is it a metal bottle?
No, it was a plastic bottle. It was a plastic bottle, and when it fell off of the stairs, I'll put this on camera for YouTube right now. As it dropped down the staircase, it just bounced cap first off of 4 steps, and just the amount of liquid just spewed out. And again, it got on the carpet, and so while I'm trying to soap it up, or to suck it up with our carpet cleaner, just suds of soap coming out. Like, I can't get it up now. And so now my basement smells like laundry detergent, which isn't
it could be
not a bad thing, but every time you walk down the staircase, your foot soap just comes up. It was a moment I looked at. It happened, and in slow motion, it happened in my head, and I'm watching, and I'm like,
you heard the no.
Yeah. I looked at it and I said, this is never going to get fixed, is it?
Well, we had a similar issue the other night. So we have Luca has the sippy cups that he's gotten into now. We no more bottles, now into sippy cups. And so next to our sink, we have, Alex, you know how this works, right? The little tiny scrubbing mechanism that you have to use for the straws. So we've got those hanging up next to it. I have that right next to me as I'm doing dishes over there. Well, I accidentally hit one of them, and it goes straight down into the garbage disposal. Didn't realize that it had gone into the garbage disposal. I click the garbage disposal up later as I'm using it. It gets stuck in the garbage disposal. So now you guys know I'm a master of fixing the garbage disposal now. I've had this multiple times where we've had issues.
Your dad?
No, thankfully didn't have to do that this time. But similarly to you, it's like 10:30 at night. We've already put baby boy to bed. So I'm like, damn it, now I've got to get this going. This is going to take me hours on hours. It ended up being a super quick fix. Thank God. I don't know what happened. It just must have disintegrated inside of the garbage disposal, but we didn't have to worry about that. So mine thought it was going to be an hours-long fix. Didn't end up being. Yours, you drop the suds all over.
I was on all fours on my staircase, just trying to suck as much of that soap out of the carpet as possible. And I'm telling you, I did it for 3.5 hours last night. Still doesn't fix the problem. Somebody texted and said, I'm going to have to change the carpet. I swear, if I have to change the carpet.
Said, get some defoamer, Alex. I don't know what that is, but apparently that's what you need.
I didn't know what that is either. I'm going to Google defoamer right now.
Somebody else on the text line said, this is why I use Tide Pods. That's where I'm at as well. I've been using Tide Pods for years. Seems fantastic. If they want to endorse the show, I'd be happy to do so.
Congrats to you on using Tide Pods, you jerk. I hope for someday that Tide Pod busts open on your carpet.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. One's got to go coming up in 15 minutes. But coming up next, is the front office trying to right a wrong with how they've handled Matthew Liberatore this year? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK. So yesterday I was listening to the Fast Lane, and Kerry Davis brought up something interesting, Alex. He said, I think the Cardinals are trying to use the Jordan Hicks example to avoid the same scenario taking place with Matthew Liberatore, where you look back and you say, man, maybe the Cardinals never gave Jordan Hicks the opportunity that he deserved as a starter here in St. Louis, and they don't want to make the same mistake with Liberatore as a starter. I don't feel that way, Alex. I don't feel like they're lacking opportunity right now with Matthew Liberatore. I also don't feel that there is a need to get this right now, where if they decide that the rest of this season that Libby's going to be a reliever for them, I would be more than happy for them to come in next year in spring training to try it again as a starter. The thing that I think they messed up with Jordan Hicks is not having him the entirety of one offseason just say, hey, Jordan, prepare like you're a starter for next season. Because worst case scenario, he just goes back into the bullpen. He still has 102. Like, that's in the back of his pocket at any time when he needs it. And as a reliever, that's his number one weapon. That plus his slider. But if they had told him any offseason, hey, Jordan, we're going to try you next year. We're going to give you a true chance to be a starter next year. I think that could have been what changed for him. They've done that with Liberatore. He came into spring training fighting for that fifth spot in the rotation. The odds were always stacked against him because he didn't have the contract that Steven Matz has, but he was in spring training as a starter. He got an opportunity last year to come up as a starter after starting in the minor. He had that chance, and it failed both times. So I don't think that the two situations are comparable at all. How do you feel about this, though, Alex? Do you think they are trying to right a wrong with what happened with Jordan Hicks?
No, I mean, maybe because the Cardinals seem to always have yips with things like this, but I don't think they're making a mistake in not giving him the... I think they're making the mistake in terms of not keeping him in the bullpen and toying him around of being a starter and a reliever in the middle of the season. I think you can absolutely do what San Francisco did with Jordan Hicks, but you do it in the offseason. You keep it into one distinguished role for Matthew Liberatore from start to finish this year, and then in the offseason, if you still believe he's got that starter potential, then you tell him to spend the entire offseason preparing to be a starter, and you go into spring training with that plan. I think the part where the Cardinals mess up is you toy with it. You're a starter, and then you're a reliever. You're a starter, and then you're a reliever. You're living the Zach Thompson life, where it's, we're going to do this with you, but now we're going to send you down so you can get some innings, but then we need you back in the bullpen, but then we'll build you back up. That's where it feels like you're breaking these guys. In terms of opportunity for the pitchers, I think there have been plenty of them for Matthew Liberatore. I think you've figured out what he is this season, and the problem you're making is you're screwing that up by taking him away from where he's really good and then focus on how to not make the same mistake in the offseason.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the Hicks scenario or it is they're looking at like Nick Martinez in Cincinnati and saying, why can't we get one of those? Remember, they were always rumored to be interested in a swingman. And it feels like now the front office is trying to make Libby that guy on the fly to where, well, hey, yeah, if we have one injury, we don't need to go out and add somebody. We've got the swingman here that can come in and start for 4 innings like the Reds have in Nick Martinez. Problem is Matthew Liberatore is not a starter. The whole idea of him being a starter and the whole idea of him even building up in spring training, scrap it. He's not a starting pitcher. He cannot get right-handers out. And until I see positive trends of him getting right-handers out, then we can go back to the conversation of, okay, should we build him back up as a starter? It's just not going to work. Some guys can't start. That's just the life of that pitcher. And Matthew Liberatore is one of those guys to where he needs to be in the bullpen. I don't have any fear of him moving on to be the next Jordan Hicks because I just don't think his stuff is as good as Jordan Hicks. Jordan Hicks has electric stuff that now that he's backed off a little bit and he's found a way to command a sinker and add to that splitter and be able to pace himself better, yeah, he's able to go 5 innings and be a legitimate starter. Liberatore's not that guy. Liberatore is not going to be someone that if he takes a little bit off his fastball, tries to pace himself, is he going to suddenly get right-handers out. That's just not the case for him. I think their mistake is they're trying to reinvent the wheel and trying to come up with a swingman. I think that's what they did with Thompson last season. It's what they're trying to do a little bit with Palante right now by stretching him out in the minors. It's what they're doing with Liberatore right now. I don't think they need a swingman. They just need a legitimate starter, and I don't think Liberatore's that guy.
The problem is a lot of those guys that you just mentioned, they weren't particularly good in the bullpen for the most part. Like they didn't have value out of the pen, and so it just makes more sense to use them as a starter. Liberatore has real value out of the pen. In his major league career, so this is everything we've seen from Matthew Liberatore thus far. It's not just exclusive to the 2024 season. Opposing hitters have an 890 OPS against him as a starter with a 305 batting average, and opposing hitters as a reliever have a 219 batting average with a 650 OPS against. He's a legitimately good reliever in his major league career. 4.1 ERA as a reliever, 6 ERA so far as a starter. He's just not a starter right now. I do think there's a chance that Matthew Liberatore will figure something out down the road that allows himself to become a 4 or a 5 starter. And it will be up to the Cardinals to decide what is more valuable at that point. Getting 140 innings, 150 innings out of him as a middling starter, or having him as a high-leverage reliever that can get a bunch of lefties out for you. Which one's more valuable? That'll be up for them to decide. But I don't think right now there are a whole lot of similarities to Hicks. And somebody on the text line said, BK, it's crazy that you're saying that the situations aren't comparable. You just listed all this, all of the similar pieces to this. How can you say they're not comparable at all? Because when you look at the way that they handled Matthew Liberatore preseason, I'm talking off-season training, into spring training, and then into the regular. He was a starter until they said, opening day, hey, Matthew Liberatore, you're going to be a reliever for us for now. That's the difference. Jordan Hicks was told all offseason, all spring training, into the regular season, you're a reliever. And then on April 21st, after getting into 2 games as a reliever and going 2 innings in those 2 games, he was suddenly a starter. And they're using him on this pitch count for the first 5 starts that he had. And then finally, he no longer has a pitch count anymore. He was never given the opportunity to really try himself during an offseason, to train to become a starter. That's the difference. That's the difference between what happened and what was not allowed for Jordan Hicks versus what has already taken place for Matthew Liberatore. So if that is what they're leaning on, and it's totally possible that they are, I think they're making a mistake in doing so, because I don't think the situations are very similar. And I think Matthew Liberatore's Achilles heel is something that I'm not sure it's fixable right now with the inability to get right-handed hitters out. There are just too many righties in the league. You can't operate as a starting pitcher when 70 to 80% of the hitters that you see are righties, and they're crushing you so far in your major league career. That's not something that you're able to overcome.
No, it's not. And I mean, I don't believe the Cardinals are operating that way, but if for some reason you are, you got to stop this. This is the part that's frustrating if you're operating with the yips. But I'm kind of on the same wavelength as T-Bone. I don't think even if he were to go to the San Francisco Giants that he were to have a Jordan Hicks type of run. I just don't think his stuff is there long-term to be a top-level pitcher. I think he's a bullpen guy, and I think that's the best you're going to get out of Matthew Liberatore, which is why it's so infuriating that the Cardinals keep doing this with him, because you've seen what he looks like. You know that he's got really good stuff out of the bullpen, and he can be a legit dependable arm. And instead, you just keep saying, nope, we're gonna unlock his potential. We're gonna unlock what we feel like we've got here because we've got nothing else. When all you need to do is go out there and sign somebody and put him back into the bullpen so you can keep the confidence up. The confidence, I feel like, is the most important part with Matthew Liberatore. And when you go back and forth with this stuff, you break confidence in a player.
Yeah, and I think for him, if you want to start getting him situations against righties and start to try and work on things to maybe in the offseason build him to be a starter at some point, you do that in the bullpen where he comes in, he's got a favorable matchup, but maybe he's got one right-hander, 2 right-handers that he sees, and if you see, you can get him out. The reason this is different from Hicks is, to your point, Hicks was thrown into this mess of, we need a starter, Hicks, go. And now with Liberatore, this is his 3rd season of having an attempt to be a starting pitcher. This one's a little bit more of a caveat because he's been from bullpen to now starter. He's not making the adjustment to the right-handed hitters. They've been working on stuff. It's not like he's still throwing the same stuff that he threw from his rookie season when he got called up in, I believe it was 2022. No, he's been tinkering with stuff, but he's still not getting right-handers out. So you've got to abandon that as a starter, and that's why you got to go get a Brad Keller, pull the trade for Jesus Luzardo. Hell, go get a Tyler Anderson from the LA Angels who would be willing to sell him to you.
Yeah, just do something, because you currently do not have an answer as that 5th starter spot. And Matthew Liberatore, as of today, it appears will be your starter tomorrow against the Chicago Cubs, against an offense, by the way, that's really been struggling. There's a piece that just came out over on The Athletic from the Cubs beat writer that's looking into what's changed via the first 26 games of the Cubs season and the last 25 games of the Cubs season. I want to read this to you guys real quick to give you a glimpse into what the Cardinals will be seeing this weekend. In the first 26 games, the Cubs scored 140 runs. That's 5.4 runs per game. Quote, they looked primed to build off the 2023 season in which they scored 820 runs, the sixth most in Major League Baseball, third in the National League behind only Atlanta and LA. But in the next 25 games, the most recent 25 games of the season for the Cubs, they have scored a total of 78 runs, which is 3.1 runs per game. In that first stretch, they had 5 or fewer hits in a game 3 times. 3 times in 26 games, 5 or fewer hits. Thursday was the 12th time in the last 25 games in which the Cubs have failed to reach at least 5 hits. 12 out of 25, 5 or fewer hits. Alex, this offense that's coming to town from Chicago, it is really scuffling right now. It's so interesting that the Cubs and the Cardinals are, offensively at least, like mirror images of one another. Cubs start out really hot, get really cold. Cardinals start off really cold, get really hot lately. The crazy part of it is it's like a movable object meets like the immovable force or whatever the phrase is, like the opposite of that.
You're trying to bring physics into here?
Like because the Cardinals pitching that they're going to see this weekend, Friday and Saturday, is not good. Meanwhile, the Cubs offense stinks. The Cubs pitching is really good right now that you're going to see on Friday and Saturday. And the Cardinals offense has been excellent lately. This is about as good as it gets, man, when it comes to theater that you're going to be able to see the stakes that currently exist, the trajectories of both organizations. I think this is about as good as it gets. Kerry and Buck in the booth tonight. You got the Fox booth tomorrow, Wayno in there, Sunday Night Baseball, ESPN, prime time. You can't really ask for much more from a Cubs card series at this point in the season.
This series still ain't changing my mind. I know you just tried to hype me up there again.
Yeah, I think they should be doing hype for this series. It's an exciting series.
What you just read was 2 bad teams. That's what you just read.
You just said 2 inconsistent teams are going head to head.
Want to watch bad pitching take on a bad offense? Come to this series.
In the middle of May.
Unstoppable force. Immovable object. That's what I was trying to say. That's what you're seeing this weekend. Cubs versus Cardinals. Get excited, ladies and gentlemen. There's no excitement for you guys for this?
No.
None?
It's early May. Actually,
it's late May, man. It's May. It's not even playoff time yet.
I don't think the Cardinals are good.
This is going to tell you if they're good or not.
No,
We're
it's
gonna find
not.
out this weekend.
No, it's not.
It
you
is.
beat the Dodgers last year at this time and told us we were good. What happened,
Alex? That was the last series. I don't know how many times the Dodgers were
that's
the
this
Orioles.
series.
That is the corollary. It's the Dodgers last year, the Orioles this year.
Fine, but the NL Central to the Cardinals is what the Dodgers were last year. Like you can't beat those teams. Fine,
That's
the
it.
NL
You've
Central
only
has
played
been
one team so far. So yeah,
go back the last couple of years. The NL Central has been a nightmare for the Cardinals.
2 years ago, the Cardinals did really well against the division.
2 years ago was 2 years ago. They had different managers.
Well, you
then.
keep saying stuff that's not true, man. This is an exciting series, and you need to get on board. Coming up next, one's got to go here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for One's Gotta Go. Coming up in about 10 minutes, we'll talk to Mike Palm. He's with Circa Sports out in Las Vegas. We're going to get his thoughts on this Cards-Cubs series, some Vegas perspective on that. And they're doing something really cool, Alex. They've got a new pro football contest that's coming their way. Circa Survivor, Circa Millions, up to $16 million in guaranteed prizes. We'll talk to him about that, how you can get involved, coming up here in just a little bit. But right now, One's Gotta Go. You give us 4 options. We'll tell you which one's got to go here on BK and Ferrario. Let's start with this, Alex. One's Gotta Go NFL Coverage Edition. CBS, NBC, ESPN, or Fox?
Ooh, I'm trying to think. I think it would be NBC. Once they lost Al Michaels, I didn't like NBC as much anymore.
Not a big Tirico guy?
Not a big Tirico guy. It's funny, I like ESPN, but I watch the Manning one more than I'll watch Buck and Aikman when they're on. And then the other two, I would prefer those over Mike Tirico.
I would say get rid of CBS. I can't stand Tony Romo. You want to talk about ill-prepared, listen to Tony Romo.
He's got great breakdown, man.
No, he doesn't. He, talks over the announcer. It's not that great. Tony was good in year 1.
That's what I thought.
And then he signed his contract and got all money happy and didn't have to worry about, preparing for games anymore. So, to me, it's CBS. I don't like really hardly any of their crews.
I don't either.
I would go CBS as well. I'm not a big Jim Nantz guy either.
Oh, I love Jim Nantz.
I think he's fine. I think that the pairing of Nantz and Romo is the weakest of the 4 that exists on those 4 broadcasts. I also am not sure that CBS has particularly good production side of things. I feel like they miss a lot of replays. I think Fox has the best crew. Now we're going to see what that looks like with Tom Brady. They are changing things. I thought Greg Olson was fantastic in that booth, but...
Did you see he basically came out the other day on a podcast and said, I want to be a number 1 still.
Which
was essentially hey, guess what, Fox? I'm probably going to be gone here soon.
He should. I think he has an out clause, if I'm not mistaken, if he gets another offer somewhere else to be a number 1 broadcaster. I'll be curious to see what Netflix decides to do, because I don't think they're going to have their own team this year. It's just so late in the game to put together an entire production crew. They'll probably just lease from somebody else. They'll have the NBC guys or somebody, Amazon, whoever. They'll have that crew come in and do their games for them, and they'll just broadcast it on Netflix. I wonder if next year Netflix tries to get more involved, and maybe that's something that Greg Olson could do. And then he could have a show that exists on Netflix as well.
I think he'd be the perfect guy to replace when Collinsworth is ready to call it.
It'd be really good.
Because he's got to be getting close, I would think.
All right, One's Gotta Go. Grilling edition. Hot dogs, burgers, ribs, or steaks, Alex?
Hot dogs.
What?
Yeah. Hot dogs are I have to throw them on because I forgot to make dinner. I debated ribs because I'm not a big ribs guy. I do so many other meats other than ribs. But yeah, I get rid of the weird pig combination before I'll get rid of any of the other ones.
Do you guys do steaks on Memorial Day, or if you're just having people over, grill out?
I'm not a steaks guy.
I don't mind steak. Don't get me wrong. If somebody's cooking up a steak, I'll eat it. In my previous life, but
or next week.
I don't typically see that at cookouts very often. More often than not, it'll be ribs, burgers, hot dogs. So I would say steaks is the one that's got to go for me. Not because I don't like them, but because it just doesn't necessarily fit the vibe of going out and sitting out on the deck, hanging out with a bunch of people. Maybe I'm just not in the right group.
I'm with you.
Maybe people I'm with don't have the same kind of money that some of you do.
Steaks are not it for me. I'm not even a big fan of steaks. I could go without them, and you're right. I don't see them anywhere when it comes to Memorial Day weekend stuff. And so,
it's pork steaks for Memorial weekend.
Oh, not a fan of those either.
All right, One's Gotta Go. Memorial Day Sports Edition. We'll have this as the last one here. One's Gotta Go. Memorial Day Sports. Cards, Cubs, Indy 500, playoff hockey, or the final week of the UFL season.
Oh, well, easy for me. Final week of the UFL season.
Oh, mine would be Indy 500.
Same for me.
Indy 500 is a classic, so I can...
Yeah, but you're an Indiana guy. Deep down at your heart, you're an Indiana guy.
Yeah, you're from Indiana. Only Indiana.
It's a classic race, and I kind of like Indy cars.
Is it a classic race, though?
The Indy 500? Yeah.
It's a big deal. That place sells out to
you don't think the Indy 500 is a big deal?
I'm not a race person.
500's not a big deal. That's huge.
I'm just not a race person. So
either way, it's still a big deal. I'm not a horse racing guy, but the Kentucky Derby, from what I understand, is a big deal every year. He's Alex and Steve-O on BK. Mike Palm from Circa Sports is next year on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendricks here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals back in action tonight as they start a 3-game set with the Chicago Cubs. 7:15 will be first pitch. Shota Imanaga will get the start for Chicago, and Miles Michaelis will get the start for St. Louis. The Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Cards Cubs this weekend here in St. Louis, a big series. It's going to be Chip Carey and Joe Buck in the booth tonight. Fox broadcast tomorrow with Wayno in there, and then ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. A lot of good baseball here this weekend. Hopefully, we take a look at it from the Vegas perspective right now with Mike Palm of Circa Sports out in Las Vegas. He's the vice president of operations with them. He joins us via the 101 ESPN hotline. Mike, we appreciate the time, man. How you doing today?
Doing great. We're excited. I know they're already at the restaurant down there. Our crew from Circa Sports Illinois, and Rob Linhart has just been absolutely great at Max downtown. They're expecting 300 to 400 people for the watch party for Cubs and Cards tonight.
That's what I like to hear, man. We'll be out there. We got free food set up. That's through Circa Sports, so people can come on out. Alex and I will be hanging out from 5 to 7. Game starts at 7 o'clock as well at Max in downtown Olney, Illinois. So we'll be out there hanging out. A lot of fun for Cards Cubs. All right, Mike, we want to get your perspective on this. You're the expert on the Vegas side of things. We got a lot of stuff over on the Circa Sports app in Illinois right now that people can go over there for. When you look at this Cards Cubs game going into tonight, is there anything in particular that jumps out at you, either a prop or the line overall?
I look a little bit at first three here because Imanaga has been so good the first time through the lineup. You can bet the first 3 innings run total under 2.5 for very little juice. I think it was -105 or -110 last I looked. I think you guys are getting a little bit of Fernando mania tonight. I haven't really seen anything like it. I mean, the guy's got an ERA of less than 1 in 52 innings, so 53 2/3 innings. So, I mean, obviously you got to worry a little bit about Nicholas, who struggled a bit this year, but that's probably the way I would attack it, trying to get the first 3 under because of this time everybody's seeing Imanaga, of course, for the Cards.
Mike, my co-host has a really bad obsession with this Cardinals team, and I saw the lines that you guys sent over of the Cardinals winning the World Series, plus 7,500. So, Mike, here's your platform to try and convince us of why you need to lay the money down on the Cards winning the World Series.
It's great value, Mike.
Yeah. I'll tell you. Well, I guess we've seen in the past few years in baseball, you just got to make the playoff, right? You got to get into the bracket, and you can do it as a wild card. You know, there's variance in these short series. I was trying to figure out today who's a team that's going to be a wild card that could make a run. I was taking a hard look at the Padres, but look, I think the Central's up for grabs. I wouldn't even count the Reds out of it. Pittsburgh's got the 3 good young arms. Of course, the bullpen blows the game yesterday. Cardinals, look, I mean, Baltimore hadn't lost a series in 2 years. It hadn't been swept in how long? So, is it starting to turn around? Well, we'll see this weekend and tonight if they can hit Imanaga. I think the Cubs, you give them a little bit of an advantage here in the division. Milwaukee has surprised me. I thought the loss of Counsell and then the addition of Counsell to the Cubs was going to be the main theme of the Central Division this year. But look, if you can make it to the bracket, you got a shot. Sonny Gray's been excellent so far. I'm excited. I wonder what the Cubs are going to do. I know they haven't named a starter for Sunday Night Baseball. would they go with Assad on 4 days rest? I wish they do, because I got him at 150 to 1 for Cy Young, so I need some national eyes on this guy.
There we go. I like that.
I would like to see it because I'm going to be at the game on Sunday, and I like watching Assad. So if I can get that, I'd be all into that. We're talking to Mike Palm here on 101 ESPN. He's with Circa Sports out in Las Vegas. He's their vice president of operations. All right, Mike, you guys have something going right now. You got a couple of different prize pools. One is the Circa Survivor. Another is the Circa Millions. I'm the worst football better in all of America, so the Circa Millions probably not going to be my vibe. Circa Survivor, though, sounds right up my alley. Tell people about this. What do you guys got going on with these?
It seems really simple, right? Just pick a winner every week, no point spread. It's a little harder than it looks. Of course, you can only use the team once, but it's the 60th year of the Millions contest, as you mentioned, the traditional pick 5 games against the point spread every week, and the 5th year of Survivor. And Derek has put guarantees on the prize pool every year for these. Survivor grew from, a little over 1,000 entries 4 years ago to we had 9,300 last year. You can get up to 10. Each person can buy up to 10. Entries in both are $1,000. And so we set we've upped the guarantee from 8 million to 10 million. So we need to get 10,000 entries, not to have to put any money in the pot ourselves. The very first year we did it, we had one special week, the 3 Thanksgiving games. And then after that, we added a second week around Christmas. So it really turns into a 20-week schedule because the NFL expanded. But the first year we had 35 people go 18-0 because there were 17 weeks and that extra Thanksgiving week. And then after that, we've had between 5 and 2 people win every year. Last year, 4 guys chopped $9.3 million. The year before, 2 guys chopped $6.3 million. The year before, 5 guys chopped $4.5 million. I mean, it's a shot at some life-changing money. Do you need luck along the way? Yeah. There's so much game theory that goes into it, and so many interesting stories, that pop up along the way. When they got down to 13 guys last year, like everybody wanted to chop it up, and take $850,000 each or whatever it was. And there was one guy, this Sean Perry, this pretty well-known poker player, that very openly said, "No, I'm better than everybody else. I'm the best sports bettor in the world."
Damn.
And, I'm not chopping with anybody. I'm going to win it all. Of course, he had Denver on that Sunday night game against New England and got knocked out with 4 other guys. So it's really a lot of fun. And the contest is so good because when you lose, it's usually a bad beat, right? You're taking favorites. You're taking home teams. Somehow, they have 3 turnovers. The quarterback gets hurt. They miss a field goal, whatever. And so when you lose, you think you shouldn't have, and you want to get in next year, and you have that FOMO of everybody else getting the swept the rest of the year. To make the argument for the other contests was very different. Pick 5 games against the point spread every week. There's 150 different ways to win because we do quarterly prizes. We break it up into 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. So if you can get hot for a month, we pay out $300,000 in the quarters. We do booby prize, the worst record in a quarter, overall season-long booby prize, second worst record booby prize, and then we pay out the top 100 spots with the best overall season record, getting $1 million. So very different contests. They usually sort of appeal to different people. Some get entries in both, but there's a lot of people that only love to play one or the other.
Check it out today. You got to get in on this. The Survivors, for certainly something that appeals to me.
I'm going the other one.
Millions appeals to a lot of people as well. You pick the 5 games every single week against the spread. You put them over there, and you end up, hopefully by the end of the year, winning millions. Not so bad.
All Mike needed to say was booby prize. That means the worst entry is going to get something, which I am all on board with that one.
You go either for the top or the bottom, one way or the other. Hey, Mike, appreciate the time, man. Appreciate you guys putting on this party tonight and tomorrow out in Alton, Illinois. People can check it out. Max in downtown Alton. I'll be there from 5 to 7 with Alex tonight. Tanner will be there tomorrow from 4 to 6 with Alex as well. Circa Sports making it all possible. They've got the free spread for you guys out there at Max in downtown Alton. So appreciate you coming on with us today to talk about it, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, fellas. Head on down to Max. Check us out. Check out the app. See what we offer. We're giving away Circa merchandise for people that download and fund the app tonight, and free food for everybody, and enjoy the series this weekend.
Awesome. Absolutely. Same to you. That's Mike Palm of Circa Sports in Las Vegas. Appreciate him hopping on with us today. Alex, you ready to get over to Alton, Illinois later?
I've already got a parlay teed up, ready to go when I walk into Max.
You going with the Cardinals parlay tonight?
Come on, man. I'm trying to win money here.
Yeah, you know, Imanaga.
Yeah.
You going to put in a bet for tomorrow?
Yeah, it's going to be the Cubs.
And come on,
Tomorrow,
They're starting Liberatore, man.
I am going with all of the righties to get a hit tomorrow.
Yeah.
that's smart. with
Honestly,
this one.
that's not a bad
More
bet.
importantly, I think we should do the Survivor pool like us as a show.
Yeah.
But BK should fund it because we know.
I think he pays a big chunk of it because he's the most likely one to.
I
get
do
us
think
going
we
the wrong
should,
way.
as a station, do a Circa Survivor this year.
Oh, man.
The 101 ESPN Circa Survivor.
In-station fighting would take place.
Well, that's the
Especially when
problem
BK's
is
like,
we would all
"Take
have to
this
come to the
team."
same decision
and
as to
that's-
who we were going to go
And
with.
that's why as soon as the person loses, oh, man. That's why at least the three of us, you know.
I bet your Ryder would get in on it with us.
Ryder, you got $250 lying around, man? You just want to throw it into the pot right now? Katie, if you're listening, I'm not going to be involved with this. I'm not going to be involved with this one. It's a
Coming
chance
up
for
next,
$100,000.
We'll let the Rewind preview this series
Think of the
going into
upside.
the week and talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK. If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Almost messed up the word there, but I got there.
That's like me yesterday during Believe It or Not. I started to say a different word.
My mind was going.
Didn't remember what I was supposed to say.
My mind was going a completely different direction, but that's
We
fine.
had Buster Olney on the show earlier today. I think it's well worth your time to go check that out. We talked to him about how he currently views the Cardinals. He essentially said what T-Bone said earlier. Hey, if Goldie and Arenado don't start hitting, it's hard to imagine this Cardinals team going on any kind of a meaningful run. He also explained why he views the Marlins as the team that is most likely to make a trade for a pitcher early in the season. So check that all out. Podcast page available for you after the show today. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. Again, presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
All right, Alex, let's start with the Cardinals. You know what? I'm going to get away from the Cardinals for a second. We'll get to them momentarily.
What?
What about the Dodgers? They're really good.
We got some criticism earlier today for not talking enough about the Battlehawks. Battlehawks have a big game this weekend. Got to lock in that home field advantage. Alex, they've got their backup quarterback, it sounds like, most likely starting for them again. You excited for this one?
Am I supposed to say yes here? Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, man. It's fun.
Look,
Battlehawks, yeah.
Anytime it's a playoff opportunity, it's fun. Am I going to be glued to my television for the entirety of the game? Probably not.
I'm not going to. I'll probably bet on it with the Circa Sportsbook app.
Smart.
Yeah.
Smart.
I would. Better odds
Arlington
there.
Renegades on the road.
Exactly. I knew that's exactly who they're playing.
It's tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock for that
never
one
mind.
on ABC.
I got to catch up on my beauty sleep, man.
Got a lot of yard work to do with this weather coming, you know?
Good Lord, man. You guys are such fair weather fans. St. Louis City SC.
Are you a fair weather fan if you were never on board?
No, that's fair. Touche. All right. Fair enough. St. Louis City SC, T-Bone, they made a big move yesterday. Sounds like they're going to be bringing in a striker from Germany, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you know about this guy? I know it's not the one that people were like the pipe dream. He apparently said, his wife said, yeah, not interested in living in St. Louis, so not an option for them. But it seems like this is a good move. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I think they needed to add some depth to that forward group. I'm interested to know what this means for Sam Adeniran, mostly because we know about the whole, does he practice? He's practicing on his own. He's in timeout. So I'm fascinated to know what that means for his market. But I do like the addition. I do think they needed to add something up top because they're just not scoring at the same level they did last year. I don't know if he's really the answer for that because I'm not going to lie, I haven't been watching a ton of his games over in Germany, but I like that they made this kind of move because they needed to add some scoring depth up top to try and see if they can spark something. They kind of right now feel like where we're at with the Cardinals, where it's kind of blah. You don't really know how to feel. You know the sum of the parts should be better than it is, and yet they're not getting the results that you really need to see from them. So I do like the addition.
And I saw I guess they had a press conference either earlier today or yesterday, but Berkey was talking about how all of this losing is making them stronger mentally because it's something that they really haven't gone through in a stretch like this like they did last year because they were so good. So you hope that at least you can build off of that because Berkey's right. Like, you know what winning looks like for City SC. They're very good on home field advantage. It's just a matter of they're going through it right now. So hopefully at least they're showing the ability to be aggressive to try and put a better team on the pitch.
They just got to get some offense going. They're not scoring. Last year, early on in the season, the reason why they had so much success is because their offense was what was driving the team. Offense plus Berkey. Those were the two things that worked for them early on. This year, I mean, Berkey's been really good.
Berkey's been good.
You're not scoring. You've got to score more goals. It's the, lowest form of analysis that you can have, but it's the truth. It's like the Cardinals early in the season where they weren't scratching across runs. It's hard to win that way. So even when they were putting up clean sheets early on, 0-0 ties.
You saw the importance of Leuven since he's been out, and we know why now. One injury related, he was helping with his wife who's going through brain cancer, but you saw the importance of Leuven in the middle there and how much he really drives the offense for this City side.
All right, on the Cardinals, going into this weekend, I view this as, earlier today I heard the morning show, they were asking, is this a pivotal series for the Cardinals? They said pivotal, I don't know, important, yes. I think pivotal. I think this is a potential pivot point for the Cardinals season. If you end up going out there playing really good baseball, winning 2 out of 3 against the Cubs, and you get into that series next week against the Reds, and you keep carrying these good vibes into that, I think it, for me, feels like the season is heading into a new trajectory. Maybe it won't. Maybe that'll prove to be completely wrong. But this was around the time last year where the Cardinals, coming off of a big series win against the Dodgers, crapped the bed and they never got it back on track. That was it. It was just this blip on the radar of them playing well for like 13 games, and then they sucked the rest of the year and never got it back. This is the kind of series where you can prove what we have seen in the last 10 games. It's legitimate. They're actually playing good baseball right now. I want to see it against another quality opponent. The Cubs are that. Their offense has not been good. Your pitching that you're throwing out there the next couple of nights is not great. Keep a struggling offense down, Miles Mikolas. If you can do that tonight, and then on Sunday you expect Sonny Gray to go out there and give you a really good chance to win, those are the two games you got to win, because tomorrow is going to be a struggle with Matthew Liberatore likely on the mound.
Yeah, I would agree more with the morning show. I would not call it pivotal, because to me...
Of course you would.
To me, being pivotal means the outcome of this, something is going to change. And I don't believe anything changes if you win or if you lose this series, because I still don't know if I buy fully into this team. It's important in the sense of, if you want people to believe more in this Cardinals team, you need to take 2 of 3 in this series, because then you've proven it against another team in the NL Central. If you lose to showcase the importance of this, then a lot of Cardinals fans are going to be viewing it the way I am. Cool, you can beat these other teams, but you can't beat your own division.
Yeah, I don't find this series as one that is such a pivot point for the Cardinals, because I don't think the pivot point comes until they start to see Goldie and Arenado turning a corner. Because if they don't turn a corner, I don't think the Cardinals can continue to win with this offensive model that they have, which right now is the complementary pieces playing well. I don't think you can win in baseball if your superstars don't play like superstars. And right now, that's what Goldie and Arenado are. They are the superstars of this team, and they are not being the guys that are carrying they are not leading the charge for the Cardinals offense. It's the complementary pieces, so that's why I just don't feel that way. Now, if Goldie and Arenado have huge series and the Cardinals take 2 or 3 from the Cubs, okay, maybe I change my tone a little bit, but it just centers around those 2 guys.
I think if they go into this series and win without Goldie and Arenado contributing in a meaningful way, we might be heading towards a place where Alex, the other day you said, like, hey, should they maybe move those guys in the order? There's going to come a certain point in time where that becomes necessary. I don't think it's right now, but there will come a point in time where we say, hey, maybe you do have to just win with Burleson being one of your big bats this year. Maybe that's just where he's at. Maybe he arrived quicker than we expected, and he can be the contact guy that you thought Goldie could be, the all-around, like, good power, good contact, everything that you needed from him. And maybe Gorman is just going to have to be the power bat that you thought that Arenado would provide this year. And it's not the supplementary power that you thought you were going to need out of Gorman, but it's the primary source of power for your lineup. I don't know if we're there yet. I don't think we are, but there's going to come a point in time in which we will be. This weekend for me will be the opportunity for me to officially get back on board. I need to see it against the Cubs before I'm willing to do that, but this series could do it for me.
If you can't get Goldie and Arenado, you're going to have to rely on Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman, and Mason Wynn to turn into the cornerstones of this franchise. And that is a lot of pressure to put on a dude who's in the minor leagues, a dude who has showcased his ability to be very hot and very cold, and a player who in his first year is already grasping a lot of fans' attention. But to put that pressure on them that quickly, to me, that spells disaster for a team.
I think that you don't have a middle of the order on this roster if Goldie and Arenado don't hit. And if that's the case...
Unless Contreras gets back.
Maybe, but I don't know if you have another complimentary bat for him.
I think
like,
you
even
need
what
two.
Burley's doing, Matt Adams wouldn't be a 3-4 hitter in today's day.
Well, he was a 3.
I know, but what I'm saying is he wouldn't be that in today's game, I don't think. He would be more of, on a good team, hitting 6th or 5th.
2 or 6.
2 or 6, somewhere in that range, or 5th maybe, kind of where they have Burley probably tonight in the lineup. I think if they win this series without Goldie and Arenado, I know a lot of people will be saying, hey, look at this, they're winning without their 2 boppers. What it tells me is it's probably not a sustainable model.
And winning without...
It could be that those Walker.
And winning without your 2 boppers...
Maybe, but, no homers in AAA where, it's a hitter-friendly
3-hole hitter. Hit for average.
No.
It'd be great.
The one problem with hitting without boppers, like if they were injured... or if this was just like a cold spell that they were in, yeah, you can make that as an exciting thing. This has been almost 2 months of them not being boppers for you.
All right, we get back in on Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock, Alex. The Cardinals play 4 games between now and then. Their record in those 4 games will be what?
2-2.
T-Bone?
That's where I am, 2-2.
You lose the series against the Cubs.
That's where I am.
You win Sunday, and then you win Monday. You lose tonight and Saturday. Ooh, 4-0.
Actually, BK's going to the game Sunday, so they might go 1-3.
That's a really good point. Sonny Gray.
They're winning Sunday.
Oh, well, that's not going to happen.
I changed my
They're
answer to
winning
1 and 3.
tonight.
Do you think the BKO can be out?
They're winning on Monday. They're going 3-1. They're not winning tomorrow. 3-1 is my official prediction for this weekend series between the Cardinals and the Cubs, and then what they're going to do on Monday. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Be safe out there this weekend, especially if you're out there grilling. Have a great time with your family. Enjoy the Cardinals. Enjoy City. Enjoy the Battlehawks this weekend as well. We will see you guys out at Max in downtown Alton, Illinois. I will be there with Alex tonight from 5 to 7. T-Bone will be there tomorrow from 4 to 6. We're celebrating Cards Cubs. Free food out there. We'll see you guys out there. Grab a couple of beers together. And then we'll be back on Tuesday at 11 a.m. right here on 101 ESPN.